She helped him escape from a crowded party and never imagined that he would be her new love. Before we explore all the details of this incredible story, tell us where you're following us from and the time. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing, and let's embark on this journey together. The fluorescent lights of Riley's market buzzed overhead as Soraya Elise Barnes straightened her name tag for the third time that morning. Her fingers, slender and strong from years of scanning items and handling cash, moved automatically across the plastic surface. Register 3 had always been her station, not the busiest, not the quietest, just right for someone who preferred to fade into the background while keeping their eyes on everything. "Girl, you're not going to believe what happened last night." Tamia Collins's voice cut through the early morning quiet, her animated presence filling the empty space between checkout lanes. Even in the bland supermarket uniform, Tammy managed to look stylish, her naturally defined curls bouncing as she walked. Soraya suppressed a smile, her dark eyes warming at her best friend's enthusiasm. "Let me guess, another TikTok went viral." "Better." Tammy leaned against the counter, her honey brown eyes sparkling. "I got us on the list for tonight's opening at the Groove. You know, that new spot downtown. And before you start with your excuses, I already told them you're coming." The smile faded from Soraya's face. "Tammy, you know I don't do parties, or clubs, or fun, or living," Tammy finished, rolling her eyes. "But honey, when was the last time you did anything besides work and sketch in that little notebook of yours? Even your almofadas amarellas would tell you to get out more." Soraya's hand instinctively moved to touch the small sketchbook in her back pocket, where dreams of yellow pillows and floral prints lived in careful pencil strokes. "I go places," she defended weakly. "The grocery store and your apartment don't count," Tammy countered, then softened her tone. "Look, I know things haven't been easy since, well, everything, but you can't keep hiding forever. One night, that's all I'm asking." Before Soraya could respond, the morning rush began trickling in. She watched as early risers grabbed their coffee and breakfast items, their faces showing varying degrees of pre-caffeine consciousness. Each transaction was a well-rehearsed dance. Scan, bag, smile, repeat. But beneath the routine, Tammy's words echoed. During her break, Soraya sat in the employee lounge, her sketchbook open to a fresh page. Her fingers moved across the paper, creating gentle curves and sharp lines that slowly transformed into a cozy room design. Yellow pillows adorned a window seat, while carefully placed paintings of wildflowers brought life to imaginary walls. It was her escape, these moments with pencil and paper, where she could build worlds that felt safe, controlled, beautiful. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tammy. "Wear that burgundy dress you're hiding in your closet. 8 p.m. No excuses." Soraya's fingers traced over her latest sketch, then moved to touch her own skin, a gesture she'd developed whenever uncertainty crept in. The truth was, it had been months since she'd done anything remotely social. Between work shifts, saving every extra dollar, and trying to keep her head above water with rising rent costs, she'd convinced herself she didn't have time for more. But deeper down, in places she rarely let herself examine, lay the real reason: the fear of not being enough, not pretty enough, not successful enough, not interesting enough. It was easier to stay in her comfort zone, where expectations were clear and disappointment was minimal. As her break ended, Soraya tucked the sketchbook away and returned to her register. The afternoon brought its usual parade of customers. Young mothers with restless children, elderly couples taking their time with coupons, business people grabbing quick lunches. She noticed things about them, the way some avoided eye contact while others seemed desperate for connection, sharing life stories over a simple transaction. By closing time, her feet ached and her back protested from hours of standing. The bus ride home was a blur of streetlights and tired faces. In her small apartment, Soraya stood before her closet, staring at the burgundy dress Tammy had mentioned. She'd bought it during a rare moment of optimism, attracted to its elegant simplicity and the way it hugged her curves without being uncomfortable. "Just one night," she whispered to herself, touching the soft fabric. "What's the worst that could happen?" Hours later, Soraya found herself regretting that question as she stood in the Groove, surrounded by pulsing music and writhing bodies. The dress felt both like armor and a spotlight, drawing more attention than she was comfortable with. Tammy had disappeared into the crowd after their arrival, promising to return with drinks and potential dance partners. The bass thundered through her chest, making it hard to breathe. Colored lights flashed across unfamiliar faces, creating a kaleidoscope of strangers. The air felt thick with perfume, sweat, and expectations. This wasn't her world. She knew that with every fiber of her being. Pushing through the crowd, Soraya found a side door that led to a small outdoor area. The night air hit her face like a blessing, cool and clear compared to the chaos inside. She leaned against the brick wall, closing her eyes and taking deep breaths. When she opened them again, she wasn't alone. He stood a few feet away, his presence somehow both commanding and gentle. Tall, with broad shoulders and a well-trimmed beard, he seemed as out of place as she felt. His clothes spoke of quiet refinement, a dark blue button-down rolled at the sleeves, dark jeans that fit perfectly, clean white sneakers that hadn't seen much of the dance floor. But it was his eyes that caught her, blue-grey and tired, yet somehow alive with something she couldn't name. When they met hers, the world seemed to shift slightly on its axis. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. Not yet. In that moment of shared silence, surrounded by the muffled thunder of music and distant city sounds, something wordless passed between them. A recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits who'd rather observe life than be consumed by it. He offered a small, understanding smile, not the practiced charm she'd seen on so many faces inside, but something real and slightly broken around the edges. Without thinking, Soraya found herself returning it. The door burst open, spilling light and noise into their quiet moment. A group of laughing people stumbled out, breaking the spell. When Soraya looked back, he was gone, leaving her with nothing but the memory of grey-blue eyes and the strange feeling that something important had just happened. Later that night, lying in bed with her sketchbook open beside her, Soraya found herself drawing eyes instead of room designs, grey-blue eyes that seemed to see past her carefully constructed walls. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt something shift inside her, a tiny crack in the armor she'd built around her heart. Her phone lit up with a text from Tammy. "Girl, where did you disappear to? You missed all the fun." Soraya smiled, typing back, "I found some quiet." What she didn't say was that in that quiet, she'd found something else too, a moment of connection that felt more real than any song or dance could have provided. She didn't tell Tammy about the man with the tired eyes, or the way her heart had skipped when he smiled, or how for just a moment she'd felt truly seen. Some things, she was learning, were better kept in silence, at least for now. As sleep claimed her, Soraya's last thoughts were of grey-blue eyes and gentle smiles, of moments that spoke louder than words, and of the possibility that maybe, just maybe, there was more to life than what she'd allowed herself to experience. Outside her window, the North Carolina night hummed with cicadas and distant traffic, a lullaby for dreamers and the quietly brave. 3 weeks had passed since the night at the Groove, but Soraya couldn't shake the memory of those grey-blue eyes. She'd buried herself in work, trying to focus on the rhythm of scanning items and counting change, but quiet moments would bring his face floating back to her consciousness. "Earth to Soraya," Tammy's voice cut through her thoughts. "You've been staring at that same can of tomatoes for like 5 minutes. Soraya blinked, realizing she'd stopped mid-scan. The elderly customer at her register smiled patiently. "Sorry, Mrs. Henderson," she mumbled, quickly finishing the transaction. "Honey, you look tired," Mrs. Henderson said, her weathered hands accepting her change. "My Gerald used to get that same far-away look when something was weighing on his mind." "I'm fine," Soraya assured her, but her fingers unconsciously traced patterns on the counter, a tell Tammy knew all too well. After Mrs. Henderson left, Tammy leaned across from her register. "Okay, spill. You've been weird ever since that night at the club. Did something happen that you're not telling me about?" Before Soraya could answer, the automatic doors slid open, letting in a gust of autumn air, and a customer who made her heart stop mid-beat. There he was. Owen James Mercer stood in the entrance, looking somehow both more real and more impossible than her memory of him. His presence filled the space differently than it had in the darkness outside the Groove. Daylight caught the lighter strands in his beard, and his grey-blue eyes seemed brighter, though still carrying that weight she remembered. He wore simple clothes, a charcoal Henley that emphasized his broad shoulders, dark jeans, and those same impeccably clean sneakers. In his hands, he clutched a small shopping basket like it was an anchor to reality. Their eyes met across the store, and recognition flickered between them like electricity. Tammy noticed the change in Soraya's posture immediately. "Oh my God," she whispered, following her friend's gaze. "Who is that? And why are you looking at him like he's both a ghost and a snack? Shh, Soraya hissed, suddenly very interested in reorganizing the candy display by her register. But Owen was already walking toward them, his steps measured and deliberate. He chose Soraya's line despite Tammy's register being empty, a detail that made Tammy's eyes widen with delight. "Hi," he said softly, placing his basket on the counter. His voice was deep and gentle, with a slight raspiness that suggested he didn't use it often. "Hi," Soraya replied, equally quiet. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for his first item, a loaf of artisanal bread. "So I didn't know you worked here," he continued, watching as she scanned each item with careful precision. Coffee beans, organic apples, a journal with an unmarked leather cover. "I didn't know you shopped here," she countered, gaining confidence from the familiar routine of her work. A small smile tugged at his beard. "I don't usually. I live across town, but He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I wanted to try something new." The unspoken truth hung between them. He'd been looking for her. From her register, Tammy watched the interaction with poorly concealed fascination, pretending to organize receipt paper while straining to hear every word. "That'll be $24.87, Soraya said, her professional mask slipping slightly when their fingers brushed during the card transaction. Owen lingered after putting his wallet away, his hands resting on the counter. "I never got your name," he said finally. "That night at the club?" "Soraya," she offered. "Soraya Barnes." Owen Mercer. He tested her name like it was something precious. When do you take your break?" Before Soraya could respond, Tammy called out, "She's due for one in about 10 minutes. Earning herself a glare from her best friend. Owen's smile grew more confident. "Would you like to get coffee?" "There's a place just down the street." Soraya's fingers found each other, twisting nervously. "I only get 30 minutes. "I'll bring the coffee here then," he offered quickly. "If you want." A warmth spread through her chest at his persistence, at the way he seemed to read her hesitation not as rejection, but as a need for space. "I like mine with—" "Let me guess," he interrupted gently. "Oat milk, no sugar." She blinked in surprise. "How did you—" "You seem like someone who appreciates things in their purest form," he explained, then added with a touch of self-deprecation. "Plus, I noticed you checking the ingredients on the almond milk I just bought." A genuine laugh escaped her, the kind that surprised both of them with its authenticity. "Yes to the oat milk," she conceded, "but I do like one sugar." "Noted." His eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. 10 minutes, she nodded, trying to ignore the way her heart hammered against her ribs. As Owen left with his groceries, Tammy practically vaulted over to Soraya's register. "Okay, first of all, how dare you not tell me about this fine specimen of a man? Second, girl, he came across town to try something new. Please, he came looking for you." "It's not like that," Soraya protested weakly. "We just stood in silence together at the club. We didn't even talk." "Sometimes silence says more than words," Tammy said, uncharacteristically serious. "And the way he looked at you. That man has been thinking about you just as much as you've been thinking about him." Soraya busied herself with straightening already straight items on her counter. "It's just coffee. Honey, it's never just coffee." The next 10 minutes crawled by with excruciating slowness. Soraya rang up customers on autopilot, her mind wandering to grey-blue eyes and gentle smiles. When her break finally arrived, she made her way to the employee lounge, her sketchbook tucked under her arm out of habit. Owen was already waiting outside the door, holding 2 coffee cups from Magnolia Coffee, the artisanal cafe down the street. His face lit up when he saw her, and something in her chest tightened at the genuine pleasure in his expression. "I want oat milk latte with 1 sugar, he said, offering her a cup. They sat at the small table in the corner of the lounge, the fluorescent light somehow making the moment feel both more real and more surreal. Soraya took a sip of her coffee. It was perfect. "You have lunch breaks too, right?" he asked after a moment of comfortable silence. "Not just coffee breaks?" She nodded, cradling her cup. "Our lunch at 1:30. Would you like to have lunch with me tomorrow?" The question came out rushed, like he'd been holding it in. "There's this small place that makes amazing soul food, unless you don't like soul food, or we could do something else, or not. It's completely—" "Yes," she interrupted his rambling, surprising herself with her directness. "I'd like that." Relief softened his features. His eyes fell to the sketchbook beside her elbow. "You draw." Soraya instinctively moved to cover it, but stopped herself. "Just ideas, nothing special." "May I?" He gestured to the book, and after a moment's hesitation, she slid it toward him. Owen handled the sketchbook with reverence, his fingers careful as he turned the pages. His eyes widened as he took in her interior design sketches, the cozy reading nooks, the carefully planned living spaces, the recurring motif of yellow pillows and floral art. "These are beautiful," he breathed. "You see spaces differently. You see the potential in them." Something in his voice made her look up sharply. He was staring at her drawings with an intensity that spoke of recognition, not of the designs themselves, but of the yearning behind them, the desire to create beauty in small spaces, to find home in careful details. "I used to work in financial consulting," he said suddenly, still looking at her sketches. "Too high-rise office, expensive suits, the whole thing, but I never saw spaces like this, never saw the possibility of comfort in corners." The confession seemed to surprise him as much as it did her. He closed the sketchbook gently, returning it to her with hands that trembled slightly. "Why did you leave?" she asked softly. Owen's fingers moved to his left hand, touching the bare spot on his ring finger, where Soraya had noticed the phantom movement of an absent wedding ring. "That's a longer story, one I'd like to tell you, but maybe not in the break room of Riley's Market." Soraya understood. They both had stories that deserved better telling than fluorescent lights, and 20-minute coffee breaks could provide. "Tomorrow, then," she said. "Over soul food." "Tomorrow," he agreed, and the word held more promise than either of them was ready to acknowledge. As her break ended and Owen left with a quiet goodbye, Soraya found herself touching her own fingers again, not from insecurity this time, but to hold on to the lingering warmth of possibility. When she returned to her register, Tammy was practically vibrating with curiosity, but for once, her best friend didn't demand immediate details. Instead, she simply reached across the space between their registers and squeezed Soraya's hand. "Sometimes," Tammy said softly, "the best stories start with silence and coffee." Outside, autumn leaves danced past the store windows, and somewhere in the city, a man with grey-blue eyes was already counting the hours until tomorrow's lunch break, his heart lighter than it had been in years. The morning dragged by like honey in winter. Saria had changed her outfit 3 times before work, finally settling on a soft cream sweater and dark jeans that made her feel both comfortable and pretty. Her box braids were styled in a neat crown around her head, with a few strands framing her face. "You look different today," Mrs. Henderson commented while buying her usual Wednesday items. The elderly woman's eyes twinkled knowingly. "Got a special lunch planned?" Soraya felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I just trying something new," she answered, echoing Owen's words from yesterday. "Mm-hmm," Mrs. Henderson hummed, clearly unconvinced. "Well, whatever, or whoever it is, they're lucky to see that smile of yours." At 1:25, Soraya's hands trembled slightly as she closed her register. Tammy appeared beside her like a guardian angel armed with emergency supplies. "Touch-up lip gloss, breath mints, and good vibes," she announced, pressing the items into Soraya's hands. "Now go get your man, and I want every detail when you get back." Owen was waiting outside the store, looking both polished and nervous in a light blue button-down that made his eyes seem brighter. When he saw her, his whole face softened. "Hi," he said, that same gentle rasp in his voice that made her stomach flutter. "Hi," she replied, suddenly shy despite having rehearsed this moment in her head all morning. They walked together down Franklin Street, the autumn air crisp around them. Owen led her to a small restaurant tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing shop. The sign read, "Miss Ruby's Soul Kitchen," in faded gold letters. "I found this place by accident," Owen explained as he held the door for her. "Got lost one day when I first moved to this part of town. The interior was warm and inviting, with wooden tables polished by years of use and walls covered in black and white photographs of smiling families. The smell of cornbread and smothered chicken filled the air, making Soraya's mouth water. A woman in her 60s and with silver-streaked braids and laugh lines around her eyes approached their table. "Owen, baby, and you brought someone special this time." She turned to Soraya with a warm smile. "I'm Miss Ruby, and any friend of Owen's is family here." Soraya felt herself relax slightly under the woman's maternal gaze. "Everything smells amazing." "Wait till you taste it," Owen said, then addressed Miss Ruby. "2 specials, please, and sweet tea for you, as always," Miss Ruby finished, then looked at Soraya expectantly. "The same, please." After Miss Ruby left, a comfortable silence settled between them. Soraya noticed Owen's fingers tracing the edge of his napkin, a nervous gesture that mirrored her own habit. "So," she started, gathering her courage. "You mentioned yesterday about financial consulting." Owen's hand stilled. "Yeah, I was with Maxwell Financial for 7 years. The kind of job everyone thinks they want. Corner office, 6-figure salary, respect in the industry." His voice carried no pride in these accomplishments, only a distant weariness. "What changed?" He met her eyes, and she saw something raw and honest there. "I did. Or maybe I stopped changing, stopped adapting to what that life demanded, started having panic attacks in board meetings, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat." He paused as Miss Ruby brought their sweet tea. "One morning I found myself standing on my balcony, 30 stories up, wondering if—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Soraya reached across the table, her fingers brushing his hand. The touch was brief but grounding. "What stopped you?" she asked softly. A small smile touched his lips. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, was walking to school with her mum. She was wearing these bright yellow rain boots, even though it wasn't raining. She looked up and waved at me, this huge, genuine smile on her face. His voice grew thick with emotion. "It was such a small thing, but it saved my life, made me realize I wanted to see more moments like that, wanted to find joy in simple things again." Soraya's heart ached for him, for the pain he'd carried alone. "That's why you left everything, walked away that same day. My father—" Owen's jaw tightened. He called it weakness, said I was throwing away everything he'd built for me. Maybe he was right. "No," Soraya said firmly, surprising herself with her conviction. "Choosing to live, really live, isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing there is." Miss Ruby arrived with their food: golden brown fried chicken, creamy mac and cheese, collard greens, and cornbread that smelled like heaven. She set the plates down with motherly authority. "Now eat up, you two. Good food makes hard conversations easier." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes, savoring the flavors. Soraya couldn't remember the last time she'd had a meal this good, this thoughtfully prepared. "Your turn?" Owen said gently, not pushing but offering an invitation to share. Soraya took a sip of sweet tea, gathering her thoughts. "I grew up here in North Carolina, just me and my mom after Dad passed when I was 12. She worked so hard to give me everything, but—" She traced the rim of her glass. "College wasn't in the cards. Mom got sick my senior year of high school. Cancer. I started working at Riley's to help with bills. Took some community college classes when I could. The interior design sketches," Owen said, understanding dawning in his eyes. She nodded. "Mom used to say our home was small but full of love. She'd make everything beautiful with little touches. Yellow throw pillows, flower prints she found at yard sales. After she passed, I promised myself I'd finish my degree someday, help other people make their spaces feel like home." "You will," Owen said with such certainty that she had to look up. His eyes held no pity, only genuine belief in her dreams. "Sometimes it feels impossible," she admitted. "Especially now with rent going up," and she stopped herself, not ready to share the looming threat of eviction. Not yet. Owen seemed to sense her hesitation. He reached for the cornbread, broke it in half, and offered her the bigger piece. The gesture was so simple, so caring, that Soraya felt tears prick at her corners of her eyes. "What's your favorite design you've drawn?" he asked, changing the subject with gentle understanding. Soraya smiled, grateful for the shift. "There's this reading nook I keep coming back to. Bay window, built-in shelves, yellow cushions, of course. I add something new every time I sketch it. Different plants, changing the light fixtures. A space that grows with you," Owen observed, "like you're designing your future self a place to belong." The insight struck her silent. No one had ever understood her drawings quite like that before. Miss Ruby appeared with extra cornbread, taking in their empty plates with satisfaction. "Dessert? Got fresh peach cobbler today." They shared a look, both knowing Soraya's lunch break was almost over. "Next time," Owen said, and Soraya's heart skipped at the promise in those words. "Next time," Miss Ruby agreed with a knowing smile, leaving the check. When Owen reached for it, Soraya touched his hand. "Let me pay my half, please," he said softly. "Let me thank you for listening, for not looking at me differently after—" He gestured vaguely, encompassing his earlier confession. Soraya understood. This wasn't about money or traditional date dynamics. It was about gratitude, about honoring the trust they'd shared. Walking back to Riley's, their steps fell naturally in sync. The autumn sun painted everything in warm gold, making the ordinary street seem magical. "I'd like to see more of your designs sometime," Owen said as they neared the store. "If you're willing to share them." Soraya looked up at him, at the way the sunlight caught his beard and the genuine interest in his eyes. "I'd like that," she said. Maybe over coffee this weekend." His smile was answer enough. At her register later, Soraya found herself drawing again during quiet moments. But this time, alongside her usual room sketches, she added small details she'd never included before: a half-empty coffee cup on a side table, a man's jacket draped over a reading chair, 2 sets of shoes by the door. Tammy, watching her friend's dreamy expression, didn't even ask for details. Some stories, she knew, needed time to unfold on their own. That night, in her small apartment, Soraya stood before her window, looking out at the city lights. Her fingers found each other, but instead of twisting with anxiety, they traced the lingering warmth of connection. Somewhere across town, Owen sat in his sparsely furnished apartment, a leather journal open before him. For the first time in years, he wrote not about what he'd lost, but about what he might be finding in yellow pillows, gentle smiles, and the courage to begin again. The letter sat on Soraya's kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. "Final notice," it declared in bold red letters. She'd been staring at it for an hour, the words burning into her mind. Rent increase, market adjustment, 30 days to comply. Her fingers traced the edges of the paper, mind racing through calculations she'd already done 100 times. Even with her extra shifts at Riley's, even after cutting every possible expense, the numbers refused to add up. Her phone lit up with a text from Owen. "Still on for coffee. Found a place that makes their own oat milk." The sight of his message made her smile despite everything. Over the past 2 weeks, coffee dates had become their thing. Stolen moments between his job search and her shifts, conversations that flowed easier each time. "Wouldn't miss it," she typed back, pushing the notice face down on the counter. 30 minutes later, she walked into Morning Light Cafe, spotting Owen immediately. He'd claimed a corner table by the window, sunlight catching his profile as he read something on his phone. 2 weeks of regular meetings had taught her to read the subtle changes in his expression, the way his brow furrowed slightly when concentrating, how his eyes crinkled at the corners when trying not to smile. He looked up as she approached, his face brightening. "Hey," he said, standing to pull out her chair. The gesture was so naturally courteous it made her heart flutter. "Hey yourself," she replied, settling into the seat. She noticed he'd already ordered their usual drinks, her oat milk latte with 1 sugar, his black coffee with a splash of honey. "How was the morning rush?" he asked, sliding her cup closer. "The usual, though Mrs. Henderson asked about you again." Soraya smiled at the memory. "She's convinced you're the reason I've been glowing lately." Owen's ears reddened slightly. Smart woman, Mrs. Henderson. Their eyes met over their coffee cups, and that now familiar warmth spread through Soraya's chest. It scared her sometimes. How easily they'd fallen into this rhythm, how natural it felt to share these moments. "I have something for you," Owen said, reaching into his messenger bag. He pulled out a book, leather-bound and clearly old. "Found it at that vintage bookstore next to Miss Ruby's." Soraya took it carefully. "The Complete Guide to Interior Design, 1962 edition," she read aloud, running her fingers over the embossed letters. "Open it," he encouraged. Inside, the pages were filled with retro room layouts, color theory charts, and hand-drawn furniture designs. But what caught her breath were the blank pages in the back, clearly meant for notes, but never used. "I thought maybe you could add your own designs," Owen explained, watching her face, "sort of a bridge between past and future ideas." Emotion tightened Soraya's throat. It wasn't just the gift, it was the thought behind it, the way he saw and supported her dreams without question. "Owen, this is—" she started, but the rest of her sentence was cut off by a commotion at the counter. A familiar voice rose above the cafe chatter. "What do you mean you don't have my usual order ready? Do you know who I am?" Owen's body tensed. Soraya watched as all color drained from his face. Standing at the counter was an older man in an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly styled, his presence commanding attention. He was berating the young barista with practiced disdain. "Dad," Owen whispered, the word falling like a stone between them. Soraya reached across the table, her hand finding his. His fingers were ice cold. "We should go," he said, already half rising. But it was too late. "Owen," his father's voice cut through the cafe like a blade. "Well, this is unexpected." Bradford Mercer approached their table with the confidence of someone used to owning every room he entered. His eyes swept over Soraya dismissively before fixing on his son. 4 months of silence, and I find you in a coffee shop. His tone dripped with disapproval. At least tell me you've come to your senses about returning to the firm. Owen's hand tightened around Soraya's. I'm not coming back, Dad. Don't be ridiculous. This little breakdown of yours has gone on long enough. The position is still open. Richard's been holding it for you. It's not a breakdown, Owen said, his voice stronger. I'm rebuilding my life, on my terms. Bradford's laugh was cold. Rebuilding. Is that what you call hiding in cheap cafes, consorting with... His gaze flicked to Soraya again, the unspoken judgment clear in his eyes. Don't, Owen warned, an edge entering his voice that Soraya had never heard before. Don't you dare look at her like that. Like what? Like someone clearly beneath your station, someone who couldn't possibly understand our world. Bradford straightened his already perfect tie. I had such hopes for you, son. Your mother would be so disappointed. Owen stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Mum would be disappointed in what I became at Maxwell Financial, in what you made me become. His voice shook. She taught me to see people, Dad. Really see them, not just their net worth or social status. And where has that gotten you? Unemployed, throwing away a legacy. Happy, Owen shot back. For the first time in years, I'm actually happy. Bradford's face hardened. Happiness doesn't pay bills, son. When you're ready to grow up, you know where to find me. He turned on his heel and strode out, leaving a wake of whispers and stares. Owen sank back into his chair, the confrontation seeming to drain all energy from him. I'm so sorry, he whispered to Soraya. You shouldn't have had to see that. She squeezed his hand. Hey, look at me. When he did, she continued. You have nothing to apologize for, nothing. His smile was shaky but genuine. How do you do that? Do what? Make me feel anchored just by being here. The simple honesty of his words touched something deep in her heart. Here was a man who had walked away from wealth and status, who was fighting to rebuild himself, and he found anchor in her presence. The irony wasn't lost on her. How could she be anyone's anchor when her own life was so uncertain? The eviction notice seemed to burn in her memory. Owen, she started, knowing she should tell him about her situation, but looking at his still pale face, the lingering tension in his shoulders, she couldn't bring herself to add to his burdens. Not today. Want to get out of here? She suggested instead. Maybe walk by the river. He nodded gratefully. As they left the cafe, Owen kept hold of her hand, like she really was his anchor in a storm. They walked in comfortable silence, the autumn breeze carrying the scent of fallen leaves. Near the riverbank, Owen finally spoke. My mother loved simple things, he said quietly. Fresh flowers, homemade bread, sidewalk art. Dad never understood that about her. After she died, he tried to reshape me into his image of success. He looked at their joined hands. I almost let him. Soraya thought of her own mother, of yellow pillows and thrift store paintings, of finding beauty in small spaces. Sometimes the simplest things hold the most meaning, like coffee dates and soul food lunches. His smile was returning, soft and real. Like that, she agreed. They found a bench overlooking the water. Owen's arm settled naturally around her shoulders, and Soraya allowed herself to lean into him, just a little. In her bag, the vintage design book rested against her sketchpad. In her mind, the eviction notice loomed. But here, in this moment, with the river flowing before them and Owen's solid presence beside her, Soraya let herself believe that some things, some connections, were strong enough to weather any storm. Later that night, alone in her apartment, she finally opened the design book again. On the first blank page, she began to sketch. Not a room this time, but a feeling. The warmth of morning light through cafe windows, the strength of hands clasped under tables, the courage to choose happiness over expectations. Outside, the city hummed with evening traffic. Inside, Soraya Barnes drew dreams in the margins of uncertainty, wondering how long she could keep her own storms at bay. The first sign that everything was falling apart was a simple sound, water dripping where it shouldn't. Soraya stood in her tiny bathroom, watching helplessly as brown water stained her ceiling, each drop a countdown to disaster. This is the third leak this month, she told her landlord over the phone, trying to keep her voice steady. And with the rent increase, market rates are market rates, Miss Barnes. Mr. Peterson's voice crackled through the speaker. If you can't handle the new terms, Maybe it's time to consider other options. The call ended, leaving Soraya alone with the steady drip, drip, drip of her crumbling world. She had exactly 18 days left before the rent increase took effect. 18 days to figure out how to pull off a miracle. Her phone buzzed with a text from Owen. Made dinner reservations for Friday. Found a place I think you'll love. They'd been dating for nearly a month now, each day bringing them closer. Every shared meal, every coffee date, every quiet conversation made it harder to keep her struggles hidden. But how could she tell him? How could she burden their blossoming relationship with the weight of her problems? At work, Tammy noticed something was off. During their shared break, she cornered Soraya in the employee lounge. "Okay, what's going on? And don't tell me nothing, because you've been looking at that yogurt cup like it holds the secrets of the universe for the past 10 minutes. Soraya sighed, pushing the untouched yogurt away. "Peterson's raising the rent. Again. And there's another leak and—" She swallowed hard. "I can't afford it, Tammy. Any of it. Move in with me," Tammy said immediately. "My couch is yours. Your studio is barely big enough for you and your TikTok setup. Then we'll make it work. That's what best friends do." Tammy's eyes softened. "Have you told Owen?" Soraya shook her head. "He's dealing with enough. His father's been leaving voicemails, trying to pressure him back to the firm. He doesn't need my problems too. Your problems could be his solutions," Tammy pointed out. "The man clearly adores you. Why won't you let him help?" "Because I've spent my whole life doing it on my own," Soraya snapped, then immediately regretted her tone. "I'm sorry. I can't be another person's project, another burden. Girl, that man looks at you like you hung the moon. You're not a project to him." Before Soraya could respond, their break ended. The rest of her shift passed in a blur of transactions and forced smiles, her mind constantly circling back to the ticking clock of her situation. Friday evening arrived too quickly. Soraya stood before her mirror, trying to make herself presentable despite the stress of the week. She'd chosen a deep purple dress that made her dark skin glow, her box braids arranged in an elegant updo. The outfit had been an investment piece from better days, when her dreams of design school seemed more tangible. Owen picked her up in his modest sedan, looking handsome in a charcoal suit jacket and dark jeans. His face lit up when he saw her, that now familiar warmth in his grey-blue eyes making her heart skip. "You look beautiful," he said softly, leaning in to kiss her cheek. The restaurant was intimate and elegant without being pretentious. Soft jazz played in the background, and the lighting made everything feel warm and dreamy. Owen had reserved a corner table, away from the main crowd. "The chef here uses all local ingredients," he explained as they settled in. "Miss Ruby actually recommended it." Soraya smiled at the mention of the soul food restaurant owner, who'd become something of a fairy godmother to their relationship. "How is she?" "Good. She asked about you. Says we need to come by for cobbler soon." Their conversation flowed easily as they ordered and ate, sharing bites of each other's dishes and trading stories about their week. Owen told her about a promising job lead at a smaller financial advisory firm, one that focused on helping local businesses and non-profits. "It's different from what I used to do," he said, his eyes animated. "I'm more about helping real people than just moving money around." "That sounds perfect for you," Soraya said, genuinely happy for him. This was the Owen she'd come to know, caring, thoughtful, wanting to make a real difference. As their plates were cleared, Owen reached across the table to take her hand. "I've been thinking," he started, then paused as if gathering courage. "These past few weeks with you, they've meant everything to me. You've helped me see myself clearly again, helped me remember who I want to be." Soraya's heart thundered in her chest. His thumb traced patterns on her palm, sending shivers up her arm. "I know it might seem fast," he continued, "but when you know something's right—" He took a deep breath. "I want more of this, more of us. I want to really build something with you, Soraya." The sincerity in his voice, the hope in his eyes, it was everything she'd dreamed of, and it was precisely why she couldn't keep hiding. "Owen, Her voice cracked. "There's something I need to tell you." Just then, his phone buzzed. Owen glanced at it automatically, then froze. The color drained from his face. "What is it?" Soraya asked, concerned by his sudden change. He swallowed hard. "It's about my father. He's in the hospital. Heart attack." The weight of her own confession evaporated in the face of his distress. "Go," she said immediately. "You need to be there. But I'll get a ride home. Go to your father." Owen stood, clearly torn. He leaned down to kiss her forehead, his lips trembling slightly. "I'll call you," he promised. Soraya watched him hurry away, her own problems settling back around her shoulders like a heavy cloak. She'd been about to tell him everything, and now, outside the restaurant, she called Tammy for a ride. While waiting, she pulled out her phone and did what she'd been avoiding for days. She started looking at apartment listings in other cities, cheaper cities, places where she might be able to start over. The thought of leaving Owen made her chest ache, but maybe, she thought, it would be better to end things now before they got in too deep, before her inability to stand on her own feet could hurt them both. When Tammy picked her up, she took one look at Soraya's face and knew not to ask questions. They drove in silence, the city lights blurring through tears Soraya refused to let fall. Back in her apartment, water still dripping in the bathroom, Soraya opened the vintage design book Owen had given her. On its pages, she'd been sketching their story, coffee cups and riverside benches, quiet moments and shared smiles. Now she turned to a blank page and began to draw something different, a solitary room, small but dignified, somewhere far from here. Her phone remained silent. Somewhere across town, Owen sat in a hospital waiting room, dealing with his own family crisis, and in the space between them, unspoken truths grew heavier by the hour. Outside her window, a storm was building. Thunder rolled in the distance, promising rain that would only make the leaks worse. Soraya wrapped her arms around herself, wondering how much longer she could hold her own world together, when everything seemed determined to fall apart. 3 days. 3 days of silence that felt like an eternity. Soraya's phone showed a string of unanswered texts to Owen, each one carefully worded, trying to balance concern with space. Hope you're okay. Thinking of you. Here if you need me. The responses, when they came, were brief and distant. At hospital. Thanks. Talk soon. On the 4th morning, Soraya woke to the sound of arguing voices outside her apartment. Through her thin walls, she could hear Mr. Peterson showing the unit next door to potential tenants. Yes, all units are getting renovated. Premium finishes, new appliances. The whole building's going upscale. Soraya's stomach clenched. Upscale meant even higher rents, meant more people like her being pushed out. At work, she moved through her shift like a ghost. Even Tammy's usually infectious energy couldn't lift her spirits. You need to talk to him, Tammy insisted during their break. This radio silence isn't good for either of you. His father's in the hospital, Tammy. He needs to focus on family right now. You could be family too, if you'd both stop being so. The break room door opened, cutting off Tammy's words. Both women froze at the sight of Owen standing there, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usual neat appearance was rumpled, his beard untrimmed, dark circles shadowing his eyes. Owen? Soraya stood so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. Tammy quietly slipped out, squeezing Soraya's shoulder as she passed. I'm sorry, Owen said, his voice rough. I should have. I've been... He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. Can we talk after your shift? Of course. Is your father... stable? But... He swallowed hard. There's a lot. So much I need to tell you. Soraya wanted to go to him, to smooth the worry from his brow, but something in his stance kept her back. I finish at 6. I'll wait. The rest of her shift crawled by. Every time Soraya glanced toward the store entrance, she saw Owen sitting in his car in the parking lot, sometimes on his phone, sometimes just staring into space. At 6 o'clock sharp, she found him leaning against his car door. Without a word, he opened the passenger side for her. They drove in silence until reaching a small park they'd visited before. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, but neither of them seemed to notice its beauty. Dad's asking for me to come back, Owen finally said, staring straight ahead. Not just to the firm. He wants me to take over completely. Says the heart attack was a wake-up call, that he needs to step back. Soraya's heart sank. She knew what this meant. The weight of expectation, the golden handcuffs of family obligation. What do you want? She asked softly. Owen laughed, a bitter sound. Want? I want to tell him no. I want to stick to my plans, find work that matters, build a life that's mine. He turned to face her, his eyes tortured. But he's my father. And he's lying in that hospital bed, looking older than I've ever seen him, talking about legacy and family duty. And if you say yes, what happens to you? To the progress you've made? I don't know. His fingers found that phantom ring spot again. I'd have resources again. Stability. I could help people from that position, maybe, make changes from the inside. The word stability hit Soraya like a physical blow. Here she was, about to lose her home, and the universe was offering Owen a way back to financial security. How could she ask him to turn that down? "Whatever you decide," she said carefully, "I support you." Owen reached for her hand, but she pulled back slightly. The hurt in his eyes made her chest ache. "Soraya, what's wrong? And don't say nothing. You've been different, even before my father's heart attack. Please, talk to me." The concern in his voice broke something inside her. "I'm being evicted," she blurted out. "Well, not officially yet, but the rent's going up again. There are repairs needed, and I can't afford any of it." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want to be another problem for you to solve." The words burst out louder than she intended. "Because you were dealing with your own issues, and because—" She took a shaky breath. "Twice because I'm tired of never being enough on my own." "Enough, Soraya, you're everything." Owen moved to touch her face, but she turned away. "Am I? Then why do I feel like I'm drowning? Why am I working extra shifts just to keep my head above water, while the whole world seems to be saying, just try harder?" Tears she'd been holding back for days finally spilled over. "I have dreams, Owen, real ones. But every time I think I'm getting closer, something pulls me back down." "Let me help," he pleaded. "I could, what? Pay my rent? Be my savior?" She wiped her eyes angrily. "That's not what I want. That's not what either of us needs." "Then what do you want?" "I want—" Her voice broke. "I want to be strong enough on my own. I want to finish school, to make something of myself. I want to stop feeling like I'm everyone's charity case." Owen's face crumpled. "Is that what you think this is, charity?" "No, I don't know." Soraya wrapped her arms around herself. "I just know I can't be the reason you make decisions about your life, about your father's offer. You're not the reason. You're the clarity." Owen's voice rose with frustration. "Being with you has helped me see what really matters. But now you won't even let me do the same for you." They sat in heavy silence, the distance between them growing despite their physical proximity. Finally, Soraya spoke, her voice quiet but firm. I think we both need space to figure things out on our own. Soraya, please, you need to deal with your father, with what you really want from life, and She swallowed hard. "I need to handle my situation without complicating yours." "That's not fair," Owen whispered. "You're not a complication. You're the best thing that's happened to me." "Maybe that's the problem." Soraya reached for the door handle. "We can't be each other's solutions. We need to be our own answers first." She stepped out of the car, the cool evening air hitting her tear-stained face. Through the window, she saw Owen's hand reach for her, then drop. "I'm sorry," she said, not sure if he could hear her through the glass. Then she turned and walked away, each step feeling like it was weighted with lead. Behind her, Owen's car remained parked, its headlights off, a silent sentinel in the gathering darkness. She didn't look back to see if he was watching her go, didn't trust herself to be strong if she saw his face again. That night, in her leaking apartment, Soraya opened her sketchbook to draw. But instead of rooms or dreams, she found herself drawing barriers, walls and windows, doors both open and closed. On the last page, she sketched two silhouettes standing on opposite sides of a bridge, both reaching out, neither quite touching. Her phone buzzed with a text from Owen. "When you're ready to talk, I'll be here. No decisions about anything until then, I promise." She didn't respond, couldn't respond. Instead, she pulled up her laptop and started searching for jobs in other cities, trying to ignore how each listing felt like another brick in the wall between her and everything she'd begun to hope for. Time moved strangely in the wake of goodbye. For Soraya, each day blurred into the next, marked only by the steady drip of her leaking ceiling and the dwindling number of days until her rent was due. She'd taken to working doubles at Riley's, volunteering for every extra shift available. The physical exhaustion was almost welcome. It made it harder to think, to feel, to remember. "You're running yourself into the ground," Tammy said one morning, watching Soraya restock shelves with mechanical precision. "When's the last time you actually slept?" "I sleep," Soraya muttered, though they both knew it wasn't true. The dark circles under her eyes told a different story. "And eaten, because those protein bars you keep in your locker don't count as meals." Before Soraya could respond, the automatic doors slid open. Her heart lurched, as it did every time, before settling back into its new normal rhythm of disappointment. Not Owen. Of course not Owen. He hadn't been to the store since that night in the park. Instead, it was Mrs. Henderson, moving slower than usual with her wire shopping cart. The elderly woman's face lit up when she saw Soraya. "There's my favorite cashier," She approached with a knowing look. Though you're not looking quite yourself, dear. Troubles of the heart. Soraya forced a smile. Just busy, Mrs. Henderson. Can I help you find anything? Oh, I know where everything is. Been shopping here longer than you've been alive. She patted Soraya's hand. But sometimes, dear, the things we're looking for aren't on any shelf. The simple kindness in her voice nearly broke Soraya's carefully maintained composure. She turned quickly back to her restocking, blinking rapidly. You know, Mrs. Henderson continued softly, my Gerald and I almost didn't make it. Too proud, both of us. Too afraid to need each other, she chuckled. Spent 3 months apart before we figured out that being strong together isn't the same as being weak alone. Soraya's hands stilled on the can she was arranging. How? Her voice cracked. How did you figure it out? We stopped trying to protect each other from our problems and started facing them together. Mrs. Henderson smiled gently. Pride's a heavy thing to carry all by yourself, dear. After Mrs. Henderson left, Soraya found herself in the employee bathroom, staring at her reflection. The woman looking back at her seemed like a stranger, exhausted, withdrawn, hollow-eyed. When had she started looking so lost? Her phone sat heavy in her pocket. Owen's last text still unanswered. I miss you. Even the silence sounds different without you. Across town in a sterile hospital room, Owen sat beside his father's bed, watching machines track heartbeats and oxygen levels. Bradford Mercer looked smaller somehow, vulnerable in his hospital gown, his usual commanding presence diminished by illness. The board meeting's been moved to next week, his father was saying, his voice weaker but still determined. You'll need to be there. Show them you're ready to take charge. Owen stared at his hands, at the empty space where his wedding ring used to sit. Dad, I haven't said yes. Don't be ridiculous. Of course you'll take over. It's what you were raised for. No, Owen said quietly. It's what you raised me for, but it's not who I am. Bradford's heart monitor beeped slightly faster. This is about that girl, isn't it? The one from the coffee shop. Her name is Soraya. Owen's voice carried a warning edge. And no, this isn't about her. It's about me, about who I want to be. And who is that? Some small-time financial advisor, working with local businesses for pennies when you could be making millions. Someone who helps real people, someone who sees more than bottom lines. Owen stood, pacing the small room. Someone who doesn't measure success by the size of their office or the number of zeros in their bank account. His father's laugh turned into a cough. Real people? You mean like your coffee shop girlfriend, living paycheck to paycheck, no ambition beyond... Stop. Owen's voice was quiet but firm. You don't know her. You don't know her dreams, her strength, her... He swallowed hard. She sees beauty in small things, finds ways to make spaces better, lives better. She understands what really matters. And where is she now? Bradford's words hit their mark. Not here, is she? Owen turned to the window, watching the city lights begin to flicker on in the gathering dusk. No, she wasn't here, because he'd let her walk away, let her believe she wasn't enough, when in truth she was everything. His phone felt heavy in his pocket. He'd drafted dozens of messages over the past week, each one unsent. I miss your smile. The coffee shop isn't the same without you. I keep seeing yellow pillows everywhere and thinking of you. Instead of sending another message that might go unanswered, he opened his laptop and began researching something entirely different. Small business loans, entrepreneurship programs, ways to help local businesses thrive. That evening, after leaving the hospital, Owen found himself driving past Riley's Market. The store was closing up for the night. Through the windows, he caught a glimpse of Soraya, her movements tired but still graceful as she cleaned her register. He almost went in, almost parked his car and walked through those automatic doors. But he remembered her words about needing space, about being their own answers first. So instead, he drove to Miss Ruby's even though the restaurant was already closed. The older woman was counting the day's receipts, but waved him in anyway. You look like you need more than food, she said, taking in his appearance. Owen sank into a chair. I don't know what I need anymore. Miss Ruby disappeared into the kitchen and returned with 2 slices of peach cobbler. Start with this. Then we'll talk about what's really eating at you. As the cobbler's warmth filled his stomach, Owen found himself telling Miss Ruby everything. About his father's heart attack, the pressure to return to his old life, the weight of expectations, about Soraya's strength and pride, her dreams, the way she made him want to be better. Sounds to me like you both trying so hard to stand on your own, you forgot how to lean on each other, Miss Ruby observed. So sometimes the strongest thing you can do is ask for help. And sometimes helping someone else is how you help yourself. Owen stared at his empty plate, Miss Ruby's words echoing in his mind. But how do you know when to push and when to give space? Love ain't about knowing all the answers, Miss Ruby said softly. It's about being willing to figure them out together. That night, in his sparsely furnished apartment, Owen opened his journal for the first time in days. Instead of writing, he found himself sketching, clumsy amateur drawings of room layouts, trying to see spaces the way Soraya did. In the margins, he wrote lists of local businesses that might need financial guidance, community programs that could use support. His phone buzzed, not with a text from Soraya, but with a reminder about his father's medications. Tomorrow would bring more hospital visits, more pressure, more decisions to make. But tonight, surrounded by his awkward attempts at drawing and plans for a different kind of future, Owen finally felt something settle in his chest. He knew what he had to do, for himself, for his father, for Soraya, if she'd let him. Across town, in her leaking apartment, Soraya sat surrounded by job listings and apartment ads from other cities. Her sketchbook lay open beside her, its pages filled with dreams she wasn't ready to abandon. Mrs. Henderson's words echoed in her mind. Being strong together isn't the same as being weak alone. Outside, a storm was gathering, but for the first time in days, both Soraya and Owen slept soundly, each dreaming of bridges instead of walls, of strength found in vulnerability, of hands reaching out across the darkness to find each other again. The storm that had been threatening for days finally broke on a Tuesday night. Rain hammered against windows, and thunder shook the city's foundations. In her apartment, Soraya stood in the middle of her living room, surrounded by boxes and buckets catching water from multiple leaks. Her phone lit up with a weather alert, flash flood warning. As if in response, water began seeping under her front door. "No, no, no," she whispered, rushing to stuff towels against the threshold. But it was useless. The water kept coming, and now the ceiling in her bathroom had developed a crack that looked increasingly dangerous. She called Mr. Peterson, but got his voicemail. Again, Tammy was visiting family in Atlanta. The water rose. With shaking hands, Soraya began packing her most important possessions into garbage bags, her mother's photo albums, her sketchbooks, the vintage design book from Owen. Everything else would have to wait. The lights flickered once or twice, then went out completely. In the darkness, lit only by her phone's flashlight, Soraya heard a terrible cracking sound from the bathroom, then a crash. "Miss Barnes!" a voice called from outside her door. "Everyone needs to evacuate. The building structure is compromised." Soraya grabbed her bags, shoved her feet into rain boots, and opened the door to find her neighbor from across the hall, an off-duty firefighter, helping people down the stairs. The scene outside was chaos. Rain pounded mercilessly as residents huddled under the building's awning, many in their pajamas, clutching whatever they'd managed to save. Emergency vehicles, lights painted the night in rotating reds and blues. "The building's condemned," someone was saying. "They won't let us back in until it's been inspected." Soraya stood in the rain, her carefully packed garbage bags at her feet, feeling oddly calm in the face of disaster. This was it, the final push she needed. Tomorrow she'd call about that job offer in Charlotte, make a fresh start. "Soraya?" She turned at the sound of that familiar voice, sure she was imagining it. But there he was, Owen standing in the rain, his grey-blue eyes wide with concern. "How did you—" she started. "I was driving home from the hospital," he explained, moving closer, saw the emergency lights, recognized the address. He took in her soaked appearance, the garbage bags at her feet. "Are you okay?" Before she could answer, another crack of thunder split the sky and the rain intensified. "My car's just around the corner," Owen said. "Let me take you somewhere dry." Soraya looked at her bags, at her neighbors huddled in the storm, at the building that had been her home crumbling behind her, all her carefully constructed walls, her plans to handle everything alone, seemed to wash away with the rain. "Okay," she whispered. They ran to his car, loading her bags in the trunk. Once inside, Owen turned up the heat, noticing how she shivered in her wet clothes. "Where to?" he asked gently. Soraya opened her mouth to say the nearest hotel, but what came out was a "I don't know." The admission hung between them, heavy with meaning. For so long, she'd pretended to have all the answers, to be completely in control. Now, sitting in Owen's car with her life in garbage bags, she finally let herself be honest. "My place," Owen offered. Just until you figure things out. No pressure, no expectations. She looked at him then. Really looked. He seemed different somehow. More grounded, more certain of himself. The lost look he'd carried since his father's heart attack had been replaced by something steadier. Your father, she started, is stable and learning to accept that his son needs to find his own path. Owen's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I turned down the CEO position. What? Instead, I proposed a compromise. I'll join the firm, but in a new division I want to create, one focused on helping small businesses and local entrepreneurs succeed. His voice grew animated. Dad wasn't thrilled, but his heart attack made him more willing to listen, especially when I showed him the research, the potential impact on the community. Despite everything, Soraya felt a smile tugging at her lips. You did research? I had some time on my hands, he said softly. Someone once taught me that the most beautiful things often start small. They drove in comfortable silence for a while, the rain creating a curtain around them. Finally, Owen spoke again. I miss you, he said simply. I miss your smile, your drawings, the way you see beauty in everyday things. I miss bringing you coffee and watching your face light up when you talk about design. Soraya's throat tightened. I miss you too. I know you needed space. Needed to be strong on your own. I understand that better now. He glanced at her. But maybe we could be strong together, not fixing each other's problems, but supporting each other while we face them. They pulled up to his apartment building, a modest complex with warm brick walls and well-tended flower boxes, nothing like the luxury high-rise he'd once lived in. When did you move? Soraya asked, surprised. Last week, downsized. Wanted something that felt more like me, not my father's version of success. He turned to face her. The interior needs work, though. Could use a designer's eye. The gentle tease in his voice made her heart flutter. Owen, I'm not trying to save you, he said quickly, or solve everything. I want to be there, through whatever comes next. Even if that means watching you take that job in Charlotte. Soraya's eyes widened. How did you... Tammy might have mentioned it, before she left for Atlanta. He smiled sheepishly. I may have been checking in on you. From a distance. Something warm bloomed in Soraya's chest, not the desperate need she'd felt before, but something steadier, something that felt like possibility. I haven't accepted the job yet, she said. Whatever you decide, Owen replied, echoing her words from weeks ago. I support you. But first, let's get you dried off and fed. Miss Ruby sent me home with cobbler earlier. As they gathered her bags from the trunk, the rain began to ease. In the gentle aftermath of the storm, Soraya looked at Owen's building again, at its solid presence, its small but charming details. You really want my opinion on the interior? She asked. I really want your opinion on everything, he answered honestly. Sire, but only if you're willing to share it. Standing there in the rain-washed night, surrounded by the pieces of her old life packed in garbage bags, Soraya felt something shift inside her. Maybe strength wasn't about carrying everything alone. Maybe it was about knowing when to hold on and when to let go, when to stand firm and when to lean in. I might have some ideas, she said softly, about the space. Owen's smile was like sunrise after storm clouds. I'm all ears. As they walked toward his building, their shoulders brushing, Soraya realized that sometimes life's biggest storms brought the clearest skies, and sometimes finding shelter meant finding your way home to someone else's heart. Sunlight streamed through Owen's apartment windows, catching dust motes in its golden beams. Soraya sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by paint swatches and fabric samples, her sketchbook open beside her. 2 weeks had passed since the storm, and while her life was still in transition, something new was taking shape. What about this one for the living room? Owen asked, holding up a paint sample in a warm terracotta shade. He sat opposite her, his suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him in his corporate days. Too dark, Soraya said, not looking up from her sketch. Guy, we want something that makes the space feel open, inviting. She held up a different swatch, a soft cream with subtle warm undertones. This one will make the room feel larger, and it'll work perfectly with... She trailed off, suddenly aware of Owen's intense gaze. What? You said we, he noted softly. Soraya felt heat rise to her cheeks. It was true. Over the past 2 weeks, she'd found herself thinking of this space as theirs, in some indefinable way. Not because she lived here. She'd insisted on renting a small studio apartment 2 blocks away, but because they were building something together, piece by piece. I did, she acknowledged. Is that okay? Owen's smile was answer enough. He scooted closer, peering at her sketchbook. Show me what you're thinking. She'd been drawing his living room, but reimagined. Clean lines softened by texture, functionality enhanced by comfort. A reading nook by the window, built-in shelves that would display his growing collection of poetry books alongside her design magazines. And here, she pointed to a corner of the sketch, we could add a small workspace. Not a full office. You've been clear about keeping work and home separate, but somewhere to pay bills or work on projects. Like design school applications, Owen asked carefully. Soraya's hand stilled on the page. They hadn't discussed it much, but Owen knew she'd been researching programs, looking into financial aid and scholarships. Maybe, she said, the deadline for spring semester is coming up. Have you decided? About Charlotte? The job offer still sat in her email, unanswered. A good position, decent pay, a fresh start, but increasingly, it felt like running away rather than moving forward. I turned it down this morning, she admitted, but it felt like the right decision. Owen's hand found hers, squeezing gently. He didn't push for more explanation, didn't try to solve anything, just offered silent support. How was your father today? She asked, changing the subject. Better. Physical therapy's going well and... Owen smiled slightly. He asked about you. Really? He saw the community business proposal I've been working on, recognized some of the design elements you helped with, actually said it was innovative. Owen shook his head in wonder. Coming from him, that's practically a blessing. Soraya remembered the hours they'd spent at Miss Ruby's, brainstorming ways to make financial services more accessible to small business owners. How Owen's eyes had lit up talking about microloans and community investment programs. How his father's cynicism about small thinking had slowly given way to reluctant interest. The presentation to the board is next week, right? Owen nodded, a hint of nervousness crossing his face. Tuesday. Everything we've been planning, all the research, it comes down to convincing them this new division is worth the investment. They'd be fools to say no, Soraya said firmly. Your vision for this, the way you want to help people build their dreams, it's beautiful, Owen. He looked at her then, with such tenderness, it made her breath catch. Speaking of building dreams, he reached into his messenger bag and pulled out an envelope. This came for you today. Special delivery to the store. Tammy texted me to bring it over. Soraya recognized the logo of the design school instantly. Her hands trembled as she took the envelope. Open it, Owen encouraged softly. Whatever it says, I'm here. The paper was thick, official. Soraya scanned the words once, twice, hardly daring to believe them. I got in, she whispered, and mind they're offering a partial scholarship. Not full, but it's a start, Owen finished. A foundation to build on. Tears blurred her vision. After so long of holding everything in, of being strong alone, the joy of sharing this moment overwhelmed her. Owen opened his arms and she went to him without hesitation, letting him hold her while happy tears fell. His heart beat steady under her ear, his arms strong and sure around her. I'm so proud of you, he murmured into her hair, so incredibly proud. When she pulled back, wiping her eyes, she saw her tears had left marks on his shirt. Sorry, I made a mess. Worth it, he smiled. Though maybe we should add tissues to the design plan, she laughed, the sound pure and free. Looking around the room, at the paint swatches and fabric samples, at her sketches and his poetry books, at the subtle ways their lives were weaving together, Soraya felt something settle in her soul. I think, she said slowly, I'm ready to tell you my ideas for the bedroom. Owen's eyebrows rose. They hadn't discussed that room in their redesign plans, both tacitly agreeing to let that space wait until they were ready. Yeah, she reached for her sketchbook, flipping to a new page. Nothing dramatic, but I was thinking, the morning light in there is perfect for yellow pillows. The significance wasn't lost on Owen. Yellow pillows had been her dream, her symbol of home since before they met. Yellow pillows, he repeated softly. I'd like that. They spent the rest of the afternoon planning and dreaming, not just about room designs, but about their future, about how they'd balance school and work, about weekend study sessions at Miss Ruby's, about the small business owners they wanted to help. As evening approached, Owen ordered their favorite takeout, while Soraya organized the samples and swatches. Everything had its place now, its purpose, its potential. You know, Owen said as they sat down to eat, Dad asked me something interesting today. He wanted to know why I looked happier now, making less money and working harder than I ever did in my corner office. What did you tell him? that sometimes the smallest spaces hold the biggest dreams, and that true wealth isn't about what you have, but who you share it with. Soraya smiled, remembering how far they'd both come from that first silent meeting outside a club. "When did you get so wise?" "I had a good teacher," he replied, reaching for her hand across the table. "Someone who showed me that real strength isn't about standing alone, it's about knowing who to stand with." Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside him, surrounded by the pieces of their shared vision, Soraya and Owen continued planning their future, not as savior and saved, but as equals building something beautiful together. 6 months could change everything. Soraya stood in front of Riley's market, the early morning sun warming her face. The Help Wanted sign where her journey began had been replaced by a local business proud decal, one of many now displayed throughout the neighborhood. "Last day," Tammy said beside her, trying to sound cheerful despite her watery eyes. "You ready?" Soraya touched her name tag one final time. "Ready as I'll ever be." Inside, the store was transformed. New lighting brightened every aisle. Fresh paint gave the walls a warm glow, and local vendor displays showcased community products. The changes had started 3 months ago, after Owen's community business initiative passed the board vote. Riley's market had been one of the first beneficiaries, a small business loan with favorable terms, financial guidance, and a partnership program that kept them competitive with larger chains while maintaining their neighborhood character. "You still can't believe Mr. Riley is letting me manage the social media accounts," Tammy grinned, pulling up her latest TikTok featuring the store's local vendors. The video had gone viral, bringing unexpected attention to their little corner of the world. "Can't believe a lot of things," Soraya said softly, remembering everything that had brought her to this moment. The morning passed in a blur of goodbyes. Regular customers brought cards and hugs. Mrs. Henderson arrived with homemade cookies and knowing eyes. "I told you things would work out," the elderly woman said, squeezing Soraya's hands. "Sometimes the best designs take time to come together." At noon, Owen arrived, not in a suit today, but casual in jeans and a soft sweater. His new role as Director of Community Development allowed for a less formal approach, something he'd embraced wholeheartedly. "Ready for lunch?" he asked, then smiled at Tammy. "Are you too, social media queen? Miss Ruby's waiting." The soul food restaurant had become their unofficial meeting place, the site of countless conversations and decisions over the past months. Today, Miss Ruby had closed for lunch, setting a special table just for them. "My babies," she greeted them, hugging each in turn. "Look at you all, building something beautiful." They settled into their usual spots, Soraya and Owen on one side, Tammy across from them. Miss Ruby brought out all their favorites without being asked. "Remember the first time you two came in here?" she asked, setting down the cornbread, both looking lost, trying to find your way. "Now look, one starting design school, one revolutionizing his daddy's business, and both figuring out that love ain't about fixing each other. It's about growing together," Owen finished, his hand finding Soraya's under the table. Tammy pretended to gag. "Y'all are still disgustingly cute. You know that." They laughed, the sound carrying years of friendship and trust. Soraya looked around the table at these people who had become her foundation. Tammy, with her boundless energy and loyalty, Miss Ruby with her wisdom and warm food, Owen with his gentle strength and unwavering support. "Speech time," Tammy declared, raising her sweet tea. "To new beginnings. To community," Owen added. "To dreams worth building," Soraya finished. After lunch, they drove to Owen's apartment. No, their apartment now. The move had happened gradually over the past month. Piece by piece, dream by dream, the space had transformed under their shared vision. Warm colors made the rooms glow. Carefully chosen furniture created perfect reading nooks and workspaces. Owen's poetry books shared shelves with Soraya's design texts. Her gallery wall displayed her framed sketches alongside photographs of their journey, and everywhere, touches of yellow, throw pillows, fresh flowers, small bursts of sunshine that made the space uniquely theirs. "Still feels surreal," Soraya said, setting down her last box from Riley's. "Design school starting Monday, living together, everything changing." "Scared?" Owen asked gently. "Terrified," she admitted. "But not of us. Not anymore." He pulled her close, understanding in his eyes. "Tell me what you're thinking." "I'm thinking about that night at the club, how we didn't need words then, how sometimes the biggest changes start in silence. And now I'm thinking about everything we've built. Not just this space, but what it represents. Dreams we're choosing to share instead of carry alone. Owen smiled, that same gentle smile that had first caught her heart. Speaking of sharing, he reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. Dad asked me to give you this. Soraya opened it carefully, not sure what to expect from Bradford Mercer. Inside was a check, not for an extravagant amount, but enough to cover her remaining tuition gap. It's not charity, Owen said quickly, seeing her expression. It's an investment, part of the company's new scholarship program for community development. You earned this, Soraya. Your grades, your portfolio, your vision. Dad actually said you remind him of Mom. She was an artist too before... Tears pricked Soraya's eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep dreaming big. Say you'll keep making spaces beautiful. Say you'll let me be part of your journey, the way you've been part of mine. She looked around their home, at the life they'd designed together, at the future they were building. I say yes. To all of it. Their kiss was gentle, a promise of more tomorrows to come. Later that evening, friends gathered in their home to celebrate. Tammy filmed TikToks in the kitchen with Miss Ruby. Mrs. Henderson admired the design elements, telling anyone who would listen how she'd known all along these two would figure it out. Even Bradford came, looking less imposing in casual clothes, watching his son with new understanding in his eyes. He complimented Soraya on the space design, awkward but genuine in his attempt to bridge old divides. As the sun set, casting long shadows through their carefully chosen curtains, Soraya found herself by the window seat, her favorite spot, with its yellow pillows and view of the city. Owen joined her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. Penny, for your thoughts. I was just thinking about strength, she said, accepting the cup. How I used to think it meant never needing anyone, never showing weakness. And now? Now I think real strength is knowing when to stand firm and when to lean in, when to be silent and when to speak, when to build walls and when to build bridges. Owen's arm slipped around her shoulders, and she leaned into him naturally. Outside, the city lights began to twinkle. Inside, their home glowed with warmth and possibility. What's next? He asked softly. Soraya smiled, thinking of design school starting Monday, of the community projects they were planning together, of all the spaces waiting to be transformed. We keep building, she said simply, one dream at a time. Around them, their friends, laughter filled the room they'd designed together. Yellow pillows caught the last rays of sunlight, casting golden shadows on walls that had witnessed their journey from silence to symphony. They had built this, not just the physical space, but something larger, something that spoke of courage and growth, of dreams shared and burdens halved, something that proved that sometimes the most beautiful designs aren't drawn on paper, but written in the spaces between two hearts finding their way home to each other. And in that moment, surrounded by love and light and possibility, Soraya knew that this warmth, this understanding, this gentle strength they'd found together, this was what she'd been designing all along. This was home. 1 year later, the bell above Miss Ruby's door chimed softly as Soraya entered, a large presentation board tucked under her arm, the familiar scent of cornbread and coffee wrapped around her like a warm embrace. There's my favorite designer, Miss Ruby called from behind the counter. The restaurant had undergone its own transformation over the past year, subtle upgrades that maintained its soul while breathing new life into the space. It had been Soraya's first real project, a collaboration that earned her top marks in design school and brought even more customers to Miss Ruby's door. Is everyone here? Soraya asked, trying to calm the butterflies in her stomach. Not in the back room, sugar, or waiting for you. Soraya made her way to the private dining area they'd added during the renovation. As she opened the door, familiar faces turned to greet her. Tammy, now running her own successful social media consultancy. Mrs. Henderson, whose community garden project had blossomed into a neighborhood movement. Bradford Mercer, who had surprised everyone by becoming one of the strongest supporters of the community development program. And Owen, his grey-blue eyes shining with pride as she set up her presentation board. The floor is yours, Mrs. Barnes, he said formally, but his smile was soft with love. Soraya took a deep breath and unveiled her design, a comprehensive plan for transforming an abandoned building into a community center. The space would include a business incubator, design workshop spaces, and a cafe run by Miss Ruby's newly established culinary training program. We're calling it The Bridge, she explained, pointing out the architectural elements that paid homage to the building's history while creating something entirely new, a place where dreams can grow, where community means something real. As she walked them through each detail, Saria felt the certainty that had grown in her over the past year, not just in her designs, but in herself, in the knowledge that strength could be both soft and sure, that love could be both anchor and wings. After the presentation, after the unanimous approval and celebratory cobbler, Owen found her by the window where they'd first really talked. "Ready to head home?" he asked, lacing his fingers through hers. Saria smiled, thinking of their apartment with its yellow pillows and shared dreams, of the ring Owen didn't know she'd found hidden in his poetry book, of all the tomorrows stretching before them. "Home," she agreed softly. "Always." Outside, the Carolina sun painted the sky in shades of possibility, while inside, two hearts beat in perfect, silent understanding. Sometimes the most beautiful designs aren't drawn on paper at all. They're written in moments, in choices, in love, in the quiet courage to build something real together. The end. If you were in Saria's shoes, would you have the courage to give up your pride and accept Owen's help? Or would you also try to solve everything yourself for fear of appearing weak? Sometimes, as the story shows us, true strength lies in knowing when to allow someone to support you. What would you do in this situation? Black woman fixes a millionaire CEO's computer. But what he discovers about her past shakes him. Before we explore all the details of this incredible story, tell us where you're following us from and the time. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing, and let's embark on this journey together. The cracked screen of her iPhone glowed 11:47 p.m. as Yasmin Foster stared at her banking app, her heart sinking at the negative balance. Another overdraft fee. Another night of choosing between buying Noah's antibiotics or paying the electricity bill. But tonight would be different, though she didn't know it yet. The empty 47th floor of Boston's Griffin Tower hummed with the quiet desperation of late-night corporate America. Yasmin's reflection ghosted across the floor-to-ceiling windows as she pushed her cleaning cart past rows of empty desks. Her long, straight black hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, her elegant features striking even in the harsh fluorescent lighting that made her rich ebony skin seem to glow. The navy blue uniform of elite cleaning services didn't quite hide her slender figure, though she'd carefully adjusted it for modesty. She paused, adjusting one of her knockoff AirPods. Taylor Swift's latest country single played softly, her guilty pleasure, one she'd never admit to anyone. The song almost masked the sound of frustrated typing coming from the corner office. "Don't get involved," she told herself. "Just do your job and get home to Noah." Her 7-year-old son would be waiting up again despite her texts begging him to sleep. He'd be curled up in his worn Spider-Man pajamas from Target, playing Minecraft on the second-hand laptop she'd gotten from Goodwill, pretending he wasn't worried about his mom working so late. The typing stopped, replaced by a string of muttered curses that definitely weren't meant for cleaning staff ears. Yasmin hesitated. She'd learned the hard way that some people didn't appreciate help from the help. But something in that voice, frustration edged with genuine despair, made her turn around. The corner office door was open, warm light spilling into the darkened floor. Through the glass walls, she could see a man hunched over a MacBook Pro, his expensive suit jacket discarded over a chair, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. Even in his distressed state, his athletic frame and commanding presence were unmistakable. Marcus James Owen, the nameplate read, CEO. Yasmin's heart skipped. She'd seen him before, of course, in company newsletters, striding through lobbies, his Asian-American features and tall frame striking in perfectly tailored suits, but never this close, never this human. She should walk away. She had 3 more floors to clean before her shift ended at 2 a.m. Then 4 precious hours of sleep before her morning shift at Denny's. Yara would be home alone with her dark thoughts, and Noah needed his medicine. "Excuse me?" Her soft voice surprised even herself. "I couldn't help but overhear. Is everything okay?" Marcus looked up, and Yasmin's breath caught. His dark eyes were intense, even through his obvious exhaustion, his chiseled features shadowed with stubble that probably hadn't been there that morning. "I'm fine," he said automatically, then seemed to really see her. His expression shifted from dismissive to desperate in a heartbeat. "Actually, no. I have a board presentation in 6 hours and my laptop just crashed. I can't access any of my files, and IT isn't answering at this hour." Yasmin twisted her cleaning cloth between her hands. I took a computer course once. At the Tech Future Community Program, maybe I could... She trailed off, suddenly aware of how presumptuous she sounded. A cleaning lady offering tech help to a CEO, but Marcus was already standing, hope warring with skepticism on his face. You know about data recovery. Basic stuff, she admitted, but sometimes basic is all you need. He gestured to the chair beside him, and Yasmin felt the weight of worlds shifting. She should be cleaning, should be hurrying home, should be doing anything but sitting down at a CEO's desk at midnight. But she sat. The familiar scent of coffee lingered in the air. Expensive coffee, not the break room stuff she was used to. Marcus leaned close as she began typing, his cologne subtle but intoxicating. His Patek Philippe watch probably cost more than her annual salary, yet here he was, watching her work with the same hope she saw in Noah's eyes when his games wouldn't load. There, she said after a few minutes of focused typing. Try it now. Marcus reached past her to test the system, his arm briefly brushing hers. The files opened smoothly, his presentation intact. How did you... He stared at the screen, then at her, really seeing her for the first time. Yasmin stood quickly, smoothing her uniform. Just a simple recovery trick. I should get back to work. Wait, Marcus called as she reached the door. I never got your name. She hesitated, one hand on the doorframe. Yasmin. Yasmin Foster. Thank you, Yasmin Foster. The way he said her name made it sound like poetry. She nodded and slipped away into the darkness of the empty office floor, her heart pounding. It wasn't until she reached the elevator that she realized she was smiling. Her phone buzzed. A text from Yara. Where are you? I can't sleep. Reality crashed back. Her 16-year-old sister was struggling again, fighting the same demons that had taken their mother. Noah needed his medicine. Bills needed paying. The elevator doors closed on the 47th floor, but Yasmin couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in her carefully balanced world. She just didn't know if that was a good thing or not. As she descended toward her normal life, Marcus Owen sat in his corner office, staring at his recovered files, but seeing only a pair of expressive brown eyes and a gentle smile that had just changed everything. Neither of them knew it yet, but that simple interaction, a crashed laptop, a quiet offer of help, a moment of genuine connection, would ripple through their lives in ways neither could imagine. Sometimes destiny writes its best stories in computer code and cleaning schedules, in midnight encounters, and moments of simple kindness. But for now, the night stretched ahead, full of possibilities and dangers, dreams and responsibilities, all balanced on the edge of a choice that had already been made. And somewhere in Boston, a little boy in Spider-Man pajamas waited up for his mother, unaware that his world was about to change forever. The fluorescent lights of Denny's at 6 a.m. had a way of making everything look both harsh and unreal. Yasmin's reflection in the chrome coffee maker showed dark circles under her eyes that even her careful makeup couldn't fully hide. She'd managed only 2 hours of sleep after her cleaning shift, her mind replaying that midnight encounter in the corner office like a scene from a movie she couldn't quite believe she'd starred in. Order up for table 7. The cook's voice snapped her back to reality. 2 plates of Grand Slam breakfasts waited under the heating lamps, their edges already starting to curl, just like her tips would curl if she didn't move faster. Her phone vibrated in her apron pocket. Another reminder about Noah's antibiotics prescription waiting at CVS. $42.67 that she didn't have, not after paying for Yara's antidepressants last week, the same medication their mother had taken before. Mom! Noah's voice cut through her thoughts. He sat at the counter in his Washington Elementary School uniform, already showing signs of wear though the semester had barely started. His homework was spread across the Formica surface. She'd brought him to work after finding Yara had another sleepless night, too drained to get Noah ready for school. Just a minute, baby, Yasmin called, balancing the plates with practiced grace. Table 7 was a pair of suited businessmen who barely looked up from their phones as she served them. Their watches caught the light, not quite Patek Philippe level, but enough to remind her of different hands, a different watch, just hours ago. Mom, look. Noah held up his math worksheet, pride beaming through his gap-toothed smile. Ms. Reynolds said I might get to join the advanced math group. Yasmin's heart swelled, even as it ached. Her boy, so bright, so full of potential, doing his homework at a Denny's counter because their apartment's electricity was spotty again. That's amazing, sweetie. We'll celebrate with pancakes, okay? With chocolate chips? His eyes lit up, so much like her own. Half portion, she compromised, knowing she'd have to skip her own breakfast to make up the difference. And only if you finish that worksheet. The bell above the door chimed. Yasmin turned, coffee pot already in hand, and nearly dropped it. Marcus Owen stood in the doorway of Denny's, his 6'1" frame somehow making the familiar restaurant feel smaller. His perfectly tailored grey suit looked out of place among the vinyl booths and sticky menus. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither moved. "Good morning," he said, and somehow those two words carried more weight than they should. "Good morning, sir," Yasmin replied automatically, professionalism snapping back into place like armor. "Would you like to be seated?" He nodded, following her to a booth. Up close, he looked as tired as she felt. His board presentation must have finished recently. Had he come looking for her? No, that was ridiculous. Rich CEOs didn't track down cleaning ladies at Denny's. "Just coffee, please," he said, then glanced at her name tag as if he hadn't spent the last 6 hours remembering her name. Yasmin. She poured his coffee with steady hands, though her heart raced. The morning light through the window caught his features, softening them. Without the desperate edge of last night, she could see the subtle signs of his heritage in his face. Proud cheekbones, dark eyes that held stories of immigrant parents' sacrifices. "Mom!" Noah called again. "Is 7 times 8 56 or 64? 56, Yasmin and Marcus answered simultaneously. Noah looked up, curious. "Are you good at math too, mister?" "Noah," Yasmin started, but Marcus was already smiling. "I like to think so," he said. "I used to help out at my parents' restaurant, doing all the calculations for inventory and expenses. Math became like a friend." Noah's eyes widened. "Did you have a restaurant? With fortune cookies and everything?" "Noah!" Yasmin felt her cheeks burn. "I'm so sorry, sir. He doesn't mean to." "It's fine," Marcus laughed, and the sound was surprisingly warm. "Actually, it was a fusion place. My dad's Chinese recipes mixed with my mom's Korean ones. And yes, we had fortune cookies, though my grandmother insisted they weren't authentic." Yasmin watched in amazement as her son and her CEO, no, not hers, just the CEO, fell into an easy conversation about food and numbers. Noah showed off his worksheet, and Marcus pointed out clever ways to solve the problems, his Forbes-worthy business persona melting into something more real. Her phone buzzed again. Yara. Skipping first period. Can't face everyone today. Reality crashed back. Yasmin needed to get Noah to school, pick up medications she couldn't afford, convince her sister to keep fighting battles she herself barely understood. "I should get back to work," she said softly. Marcus looked up, something unreadable in his expression. "Of course, thank you for the coffee." He pulled out his wallet, leaving a $100 bill on the table. "Keep the change." "Sir, I can't—" "For Noah's college fund," he said quietly, then louder. "Thanks for helping me with math, buddy. Keep working hard." Noah beamed. "Mum, can Mr. Owen come to my school's math fair next month?" The question hung in the air like morning mist, full of impossible possibilities. Marcus paused halfway out of the booth, his expression softening as he looked at Yasmin. We shouldn't keep Mr. Owen from his important work," Yasmin managed. "Right," Marcus agreed, though something in his voice suggested he wanted to say more. "Have a good day, Yasmin Foster." She watched him leave, the $100 bill burning a hole in her apron pocket. Pride warred with necessity, dignity with desperation. In the end, she tucked it away. Noah's medicine wouldn't pay for itself. The morning rush was starting, more customers filing in. Life didn't pause for moments of connection or impossible dreams. But as Yasmin moved through her familiar routine of coffee pours and order takes, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting, like tectonic plates moving beneath the surface of her carefully ordered world. And in his Tesla, driving away from Denny's, Marcus Owen found himself Google searching elementary school math fairs in Boston, wondering when exactly his life had started feeling empty of everything except board meetings and profit margins, and why a simple breakfast stop had filled some void he hadn't even known existed. The sound of breaking glass shattered the pre-dawn silence of the Foster apartment. Yasmin burst from her bedroom to find Yara standing in the dim kitchen, surrounded by the remains of their mother's favorite coffee mug, one of the few things they'd kept after the funeral. "I'm sorry," Yara whispered, her box braids casting shadows on her tear-stained face. I couldn't sleep, and I thought maybe if I made coffee like Mom used to." Yasmin's heart broke at the sight of her 16-year-old sister, wearing one of their mother's old Bath and Body Works uniforms she'd started sleeping in. The morning light hadn't yet breached their small apartment's windows, but the harsh glow of Yara's phone on the counter displayed multiple missed calls from her school counselor. "It's okay, baby girl," Yasmin soothed, carefully stepping around the ceramic shards. "We'll clean this up together." No, it's not okay, Yara's voice cracked. Nothing's okay. I keep breaking everything I touch, just like... She cut herself off, but they both knew the end of that sentence. Just like Mum. Before Yasmin could reach her sister, Noah appeared in the hallway, Spider-Man blanket dragging behind him. Yaya, are you hurt? The sisters exchanged a quick glance, years of protecting Noah's innocence kicking in automatically. Yasmin forced a smile. Everything's fine, baby. Why don't you go get ready for school? I packed your Minecraft lunch bag already. But Noah, too perceptive for his 7 years, looked between them with worried eyes. Is it because of the mean girls at Yaya's school? I saw on her TikTok. You've been on my phone, Yara snapped, then immediately regretted it when Noah flinched. I just wanted to see your funny videos, he mumbled. Yasmin's phone buzzed, her morning alarm for her Denny's shift. In 3 hours, she'd need to be back at Griffin Tower for her cleaning job. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders like a physical thing. Noah, bathroom, now. Yara, sit. Her voice took on the tone their mother used to use, firm but loving. We're having a family meeting. Once Noah was out of earshot, Yasmin took Yara's trembling hands. Talk to me. What happened at school? Yara's facade crumbled. They found my antidepressants in my bag during gym. Started calling me crazy girl on Snapchat. Said I'd end up just like... She choked back a sob. The counselor wants to have a family discussion about my concerning behavior. Yasmin closed her eyes, remembering similar meetings about their mother. The same concerned looks, the same carefully worded suggestions, the same helplessness. I'll call out of work. We'll go together. No, Yara pulled away. We can't afford it. I saw the CVS notifications about Noah's medicine. I'm not stupid, Yasmin. I know we're barely hanging on. Before Yasmin could respond, a knock at the door froze them both. Through the peephole, she saw their landlord, Mr. Patterson, shifting impatiently. Ms. Foster, your rent check bounced. Again, Yasmin's chest tightened. She'd been counting on her cleaning job bonus, but after missing shifts to care for a sick Noah last week. Just a moment, she called out, then whispered to Yara, get Noah ready for school. We'll figure this out. Opening the door just enough to slide through, Yasmin faced her landlord in the hallway. But as she prepared her usual litany of promises and explanations, an unexpected voice cut through the tension. Is everything all right? Marcus Owen stood at the stairwell, looking somehow both out of place and perfectly natural in the rundown apartment building. His casual clothes, designer jeans and a soft grey Henley that did nothing to hide his athletic frame, suggested this wasn't a business visit. Mr. Owen? Yasmin's mind raced. How did you... I had some paperwork for you, he said smoothly, holding up a manila envelope. From HR, about the computer assistance the other night. Mr. Patterson's demeanor shifted instantly at the sight of Marcus's Rolex and casual display of authority. Oh, you're Miss Foster's employer? Yes, Marcus said simply, but something in his tone made the landlord straighten. Is there a problem? Just a small banking error, Yasmin interjected, pride warring with circumstance. I'll have it sorted by... It's taken care of, Marcus said, surprising both of them. He pulled out his phone, tapping quickly. I've just transferred this month's rent to the building's account, a bonus for Ms. Foster's exceptional IT work. Mr. Patterson's phone dinged, confirming the transfer. He retreated quickly, leaving Yasmin and Marcus in a hallway heavy with unspoken words. You can't do that, she finally managed. I can, and I did. His dark eyes held hers. Consider it professional compensation. Your help saved me from a disastrous board meeting. I was just doing my job. No, he cut in softly. Your job was cleaning. You went above and beyond. Let someone do the same for you. Before she could respond, the apartment door opened and Noah bounded out, now dressed for school, but with his shirt buttoned wrong. His face lit up. Mr. Owen, did you come to help with more math? Marcus knelt to Noah's level, smoothly fixing his buttons while talking. Actually, I was wondering if your mom had thought more about the math fair. Over Noah's head, their eyes met. In that moment, Yasmin saw not a CEO or a savior, but a man looking for something real in a world of corporate facades. Still, we can't accept, she started. Mom! Yara's panicked voice came from inside. The bathroom sink is overflowing. Reality crashed back like the morning's broken mug. Yasmin turned to deal with the latest crisis, but Marcus's hand caught her arm gently. Let me help, he said quietly. Not because you need it, but because sometimes the strongest thing we can do is accept support when it's offered with respect. Through the open door, they could see Yara trying to contain the water with their dwindling supply of paper towels, Noah offering his Spider-Man blanket as backup, and the morning sun finally breaking through their dusty windows. It painted the scene in shades of gold and shadow, much like their lives, beauty and struggle intertwined. And in that moment, standing in a run-down hallway between two worlds, Yasmin Foster faced a choice that had nothing to do with pride or money, and everything to do with trust. Sometimes the hardest walls to break aren't made of glass at all, but of the protective barriers we build around our hearts. The Griffin Tower employee break room buzzed with whispers that seemed to follow Yasmin like persistent shadows. Her cleaning cart stood forgotten in the corner as she stared at her phone, reading the email from Yara's school counselor for the third time. Urgent meeting requested, concerning behavior, family support system evaluation. A burst of laughter from a group of office workers made her look up. They quickly averted their eyes, but not before she caught the words CEO and charity case floating in the air between them. Her reflection in the break room window showed her carefully maintained appearance, straight hair smoothed to perfection, uniform pressed despite the early morning wrestling with the broken sink, makeup covering the exhaustion of another sleepless night. But no amount of concealer could hide the weight of the morning's events. "Did you hear?" a young intern whispered too loudly to her friend by the coffee machine. He was seen at her apartment building. "Jenny from accounting says..." The break room door opened and Marcus strode in, bringing with him the scent of expensive cologne and the sudden silence that accompanies authority. But today, instead of his usual purposeful walk to the executive elevator, he paused at the coffee station. "Yasmin," he said, his voice carrying in the quiet room, "do you have a moment?" She felt every eye on them as she followed him out, her heart pounding. In the relative privacy of the hallway, Marcus's professional facade softened. "About this morning," they both started simultaneously. A small smile tugged at his lips. "You first." "The rent money," Yasmin said quietly. "I can't accept it. I'll figure something out." Marcus leaned against the wall, his height making him seem protective rather than intimidating. "Would you accept a business proposal instead?" Before she could respond, her phone vibrated. A text from Noah's teacher. "Noah fell asleep in class again. Is everything okay at home?" Marcus noticed her expression change. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she said automatically, then corrected herself. "Everything. My son's struggling at school. My sister's counselor thinks I'm an inadequate guardian. My landlord's breathing down my neck, and now everyone thinks..." She cut herself off, realizing she was unloading on her boss. But Marcus's dark eyes held nothing but understanding. "What do they think, Yasmin? That I'm trying to... that we're..." She gestured helplessly between them. "Having a torrid affair where the CEO saves the poor cleaning lady?" His tone was gently mocking, not of her but of the gossip. "I think we're both more interesting than that stereotype." Despite everything, Yasmin felt a laugh bubble up. Slightly more complicated at least. "Speaking of complications," Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her an email. "The IT department is impressed with your handling of my computer crisis. They're looking for someone to train in basic tech support for after-hours emergencies. Regular hours, better pay, benefits." Yasmin's heart leaped, then plummeted. "I don't have a degree. You have experience and natural talent. The rest can be learned." He paused. "Think about it. Not as charity, as an opportunity you've earned." The hallway suddenly felt too small, too intimate. Through the glass walls, Yasmin could see office workers trying not to stare. "I should get back to work," she said softly. "Yasmin," Marcus's voice stopped her. "About the math fair. Noah mentioned it's this Friday." She turned back, surprised he remembered. "Yes, but..." "I'll be there. Simple, definitive. Not as your boss. Not as anything except someone who thinks your son is brilliant and deserves support." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was the CVS pharmacy. "Prescription ready for pickup. Foster, Yara, sertraline 50 mg. Balance due, $147.83. The same medication their mother had taken. The same battle playing out in a new generation. Marcus saw the color drain from her face. "What is it?" "I need to make some calls," she said, already calculating which bill she could delay this time. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Owen, but..." "Marcus," he corrected gently. "At least when we're not surrounded by gossips and glass walls." A commotion down the hall caught their attention. Yara stood by the security desk, her school backpack clutched to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "I need to see my sister," she was telling the impassive security guard. "Please, it's important." Yasmin was moving before she could think, Marcus right behind her. The security guard straightened at the CEO's approach, but Marcus's attention was on Yara. "Let her through, James," he said quietly. "She's family." That word, family, hung in the air, like a promise or a prayer. The security guard quickly issued a visitor's pass, and Yara flew into her sister's arms. "I couldn't do it," Yara sobbed. "They were all staring, whispering, just like they did with Mom. The counselor wanted to talk about residential treatment options, and I ran." Yasmin held her sister, feeling her shake. Through the lobby windows, she could see students getting off a school bus for a corporate tour, their lives so different from the reality playing out here. "Ms. Foster," the security guard started, clearly uncomfortable with the scene, but Marcus cut him off. "My office is free," he said. "Take all the time you need." Yasmin looked at him, really looked. Past the expensive clothes and corporate power, she saw someone who understood what it meant to carry the weight of family expectations and cultural pressures, someone who'd fought his own battles with identity and belonging. "Thank you," she whispered, meaning so much more than just the office space. As she guided Yara toward the elevators, Marcus's voice stopped her once more. "Yasmin, the IT position includes full health insurance for you and your dependents. Just think about it." The elevator doors closed on his words, reflecting back the image of two sisters holding each other up, while somewhere in the building, whispers continued to circulate about the CEO and the cleaning lady. But for once, Yasmin didn't care about the rumors. Because sometimes the most important choices we make aren't about love or money or even survival. They're about recognizing that strength doesn't mean carrying every burden alone. And sometimes help comes not in grand gestures, but in quiet offers of empty offices and filled prescriptions, in remembered math fairs, and gentle corrections from Mr. Owen to Marcus. Boston Rain had a way of making even the simplest decisions feel heavy with consequence. Yasmin stood under the awning of Washington Elementary School, watching parents with expensive umbrellas hurry their children to luxury SUVs while she waited for the public bus with Noah. Her Target umbrella had finally given up during last week's storm, and replacing it hadn't made the priority list. "Mum, look!" Noah pointed excitedly at his math fair project propped carefully under his raincoat, a complex pattern of numbers and colorful graphs that had kept him up late into the night. "Do you think Mr. Owen will really come?" Before she could answer, a sleek Tesla Model S pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down, revealing Marcus, dressed casually in a charcoal sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Need a ride?" he asked, then added quickly when he saw her hesitation. "It's pouring and I'm headed to the tower anyway." Noah bounced excitedly. "Mom, look at his car. It's just like in my video games." A crack of thunder made the decision for her. As they settled into the leather seats, Noah's eyes wide at the massive touchscreen display, Yasmin caught Marcus watching her in the rearview mirror. He'd clearly come straight from CrossFit, his hair still damp from a shower, a gym bag visible in the back. "You didn't have to do this," she said softly. "I wanted to," he replied, then turned to Noah. "So, tell me about your project." As Noah launched into an enthusiastic explanation of his mathematical patterns, Yasmin's phone buzzed. A text from Yara. "Don't freak out, skipped school again at the cemetery visiting Mom." Yasmin's heart clenched. The medication was helping, but some days the shadows were too heavy. She began typing a response, but another text came through. "I'm okay. Just needed to talk to her. Promise I'll be home for dinner." "Everything all right?" Marcus asked, catching her expression. "Just family stuff," she said, not wanting to burden him further. The rain intensified as they approached Griffin Tower. Noah pressed his face against the window, watching lightning illuminate the city. "Mom, can we show Mr. Owen my project before his important meetings?" Marcus caught her eye in the mirror again. "Actually, my morning is clear. I'd love to see it." They hurried through the lobby, past the curious stares of early morning employees. The security guard, not James this time, but a younger woman, did a double take at seeing the CEO escort a cleaning lady and a child to the executive elevator. In Marcus's corner office, Noah spread his project across the expensive conference table, while Marcus listened with genuine interest. Yasmin stood by the window watching the storm while trying to ignore the whispers from passing employees. "This is brilliant," Marcus was saying to Noah. "The way you've connected the Fibonacci sequence to everyday patterns, that's college-level thinking." Noah beamed. "Ms. Reynolds says I could get into the gifted program, but..." He glanced at his mother, then dropped his voice. It costs extra money. The silence that followed felt heavier than the storm clouds outside. Marcus looked at Yasmin, something unspoken passing between them. "Noah," he said carefully, "would you like to see something cool? Press that button on the wall. It controls the smart windows." While Noah played with the window settings, Marcus moved closer to Yasmin. "The IT position includes educational benefits for dependents." "Marcus, not charity," he cut in gently. "Investment in talent, both yours and his." Before she could respond, her phone rang. Yara's school counselor. Yasmin stepped into the hallway to take the call, her heart racing. "Ms. Foster, we need to discuss Yara's absences and recent behavior. Her latest writing assignment was concerning." Yasmin closed her eyes. "What did she write?" "A rather dark piece about following in her mother's footsteps. Given your family history, I'm handling it." Yasmin cut in, perhaps too sharply. "We're adjusting her medication and—" "Ms. Foster, without proper support systems and professional intervention, I'm concerned we may need to involve family services." The threat hung in the air like the storm outside. Yasmin's hand trembled as she ended the call. Through the glass walls, she could see Noah showing Marcus how to make a paper airplane out of a post-it note, both laughing as it sailed across the office. A hand touched her shoulder. Marcus had followed her out. "Bad news? They're threatening to involve CPS," she whispered, voice breaking. "Because of Yara's depression, my work hours, Noah's struggles at school. They think I can't handle it all." "You can't," he said softly, then quickly continued when she stiffened. "No one could. Not alone. I don't have a choice. You do." His dark eyes held hers. "Take the IT job. Let me help with Noah's gifted program. Not because you need saving, but because everyone needs support sometimes." Thunder crashed outside, and the office lights flickered. Noah pressed his face against the smart windows, watching lightning split the sky. In that flash of brightness, Yasmin saw everything clearly. Her pride versus her children's needs, her fear versus possibilities she'd never dared imagine. "I can't offer you charity," Marcus continued, his voice low and intense, "but I can offer you respect, opportunity, and—" He hesitated, then finished, "whatever this is between us." A commotion down the hall interrupted them. Yara stood there, soaking wet from the rain, clutching a dripping journal to her chest. Her box braids hung heavy with water, her Bath and Body Works uniform soaked through. "I went to see Mom," she said, her voice small. "I needed to tell her, to ask her." She swayed slightly, and Yasmin rushed to her side. "You're burning up," Yasmin gasped, feeling her sister's forehead. Marcus was already moving, calling his private doctor, ordering hot tea from his assistant, pulling a soft throw blanket from his office couch. The contrast was stark, Yara's wet fast-fashion clothes against the expensive blanket, Noah's paper airplane landing on antique hardwood, Yasmin's cleaning uniform standing out against the executive decor. But somehow, in that moment, it all fit. Like Noah's mathematical patterns, like the rhythm of rain against smart windows, like the way Marcus's hand found hers without hesitation or judgment. Because sometimes family isn't about matching pieces, but about finding people who fill in your empty spaces. And sometimes love isn't about grand gestures or fairy tales, but about paper airplanes and borrowed blankets, about showing up in the rain and staying through the storm. The private medical clinic on Beacon Street felt like another world. Yasmin sat in a plush leather chair, watching Yara sleep on an examination bed that probably cost more than their entire apartment's furniture. Marcus's personal physician, Dr. Bennett, had just finished examining her sister, and now stood conferring quietly with Marcus near the window. "Severe bronchitis," Dr. Bennett was saying. "The fever's concerning, especially given her emotional state. I'd recommend observation for at least 24 hours. Yasmin's hand tightened around her phone, where an urgent email from her Denny's manager blinked accusingly. "Third missed shift this month. Final warning." Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, working on his homework while sneaking worried glances at Yara. He'd insisted on staying, refusing to go back to school until he knew his Yaya was okay. His math worksheet lay forgotten beside him as he drew what looked like a family portrait, 4 figures standing together. Marcus approached Yasmin, his casual sweater somehow not looking out of place despite the medical setting. "Dr. Bennett knows an excellent adolescent psychiatrist. She has experience with cases like Yara's. I can't afford insurance," he reminded her gently. "If you accept the IT position." Yasmin looked at her sister's pale face. so much like their mothers in those final days. I can't leave her alone to work full-time. The position includes flexible hours and remote work options. Marcus sat beside her, close enough that she could smell his subtle cologne. Yasmin, look at me. She did, finding those dark eyes that seemed to see straight through her defenses. You're not alone anymore, he said quietly. Let me help. Not as your boss, not as a CEO, but as... He paused, searching for the right words. As what? She whispered. Before he could answer, Yara stirred, mumbling in her fever-induced sleep. Mum, I'm sorry. Yasmin was there in an instant, stroking her sister's forehead. Shh, it's okay, baby girl. I'm here. Mum always said we were stronger together. Yara's eyes fluttered open, glassy with fever. But I keep trying to be strong alone. Those words hit Yasmin like a physical blow. How many times had she done the same thing? Your mother was right, Marcus said from behind them, his voice soft but firm. No one should have to be strong alone. Noah appeared at Yasmin's side, holding up his drawing. In careful child's writing, he'd labeled the figures: Mum, Yaya, me, and Mr. Marcus. The room fell silent except for the soft beeping of medical equipment. Yasmin stared at the drawing, at this impossible family her 7-year-old had created, with Crayola markers and pure hope. Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from her landlord. Maintenance coming tomorrow for sink. Rent increase next month due to repairs. Reality crashed back like a wave. I need to make some calls, she said, standing quickly. The Denny's shift, the landlord. Already handled, Marcus said quietly. Your manager agreed to medical leave and I spoke with Mr. Patterson about the repairs. You can't keep fixing everything, Yasmin protested, but her voice lacked conviction. No, he agreed, but I can stand beside you while you fix things yourself. Dr. Bennett returned with test results and prescriptions, explaining treatment plans that made Yasmin's head spin. But Marcus took notes on his phone, asking questions about drug interactions and therapy options. There's an excellent residential treatment facility, Dr. Bennett began, but Yara's monitors immediately spiked. No, Yasmin said firmly. We stay together. There are other options, Marcus interjected smoothly. Outpatient programs, home care support. Noah tugged at Yasmin's sleeve. Mum, can we show Mr. Marcus our special hot chocolate? The one that makes Yaya feel better? The simple request cut through the medical jargon and adult complications. Yasmin looked at her son, really looked at him. Despite everything, he still believed in the healing power of Swiss Miss with extra marshmallows and love. Special hot chocolate? Marcus asked, a smile tugging at his lips. Mom put cinnamon in it, Noah explained seriously, and whipped cream when we can afford it. It's magic. Magic hot chocolate does sound better than this. Yara managed a weak smile, the first real one in days. Marcus checked his Rolex. I know a place that makes excellent hot chocolate, and they deliver. Marcus, Yasmin started, but he held up a hand. Not everything is about money or help or fixing things, he said. Sometimes it's just about hot chocolate and being together. Dr. Bennett cleared her throat. The fever's stabilizing. With proper medication and rest. She glanced at Marcus, then added, perhaps home care would be best for now. Yasmin felt tears threatening. Home. They could go home. But home meant bills and work and... One step at a time, Marcus said softly, as if reading her thoughts. Today, we focus on getting Yara better. Tomorrow, he hesitated, then continued. Tomorrow, we can talk about everything else, including this. He gestured between them, acknowledging the unspoken thing that had been growing since that late-night computer repair. Noah held up his drawing again. Can we put this on the fridge? Next to my math test? Yasmin looked at the picture. 4 people, drawn in bright colors, standing together against a crayon blue sky. No class distinctions, no complications, just family. Yes, she found herself saying. Yes, we can. Through the clinic's windows, Boston's skyline glittered in the aftermath of the storm. Griffin Tower stood among the other buildings, where just hours ago everything had seemed impossible. Now, watching Marcus order hot chocolate while Noah explained the exact right number of marshmallows needed for magic, while Yara dozed peacefully under the expensive clinic blankets, Yasmin felt something shift inside her. Because sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting alone, it's letting someone else help carry the weight. And sometimes family isn't what you're born into or what you've lost, but what you build from the broken pieces, one cup of hot chocolate at a time. The IT department's orientation room felt surreal at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. Yasmin sat at a sleek computer terminal, her cleaned and pressed business casual outfit from Target, feeling both foreign and empowering. Her employee badge, no longer marked cleaning services but IT support, caught the morning light, making the change feel suddenly, startlingly real. Mrs. Foster, the IT director, a woman in her 50s named Janet Maxwell, placed a stack of training manuals beside her. "We'll start with basic systems overview, then." "Ms." Yasmin corrected gently. "And please, call me Yasmin." Her phone buzzed silently in her new work bag. A sophisticated leather tote Marcus had insisted was standard office equipment. A text from Yara. "First therapy session done. Dr. Rivera is actually cool. She has BTS posters in her office." Relief flooded through her. After a week of recovery at home, Yara had finally agreed to try therapy, but only after a long video call with Dr. Rivera, where the therapist had connected with her over K-pop and TikTok trends. "Your technical foundation is impressive," Janet was saying, reviewing Yasmin's preliminary assessment. "That night with Mr. Owen's computer showed real problem-solving skills." Yasmin's cheeks warmed, remembering how that late-night encounter had changed everything. Now, 2 weeks later, her life looked dramatically different. Yara was getting help. Noah was enrolled in the gifted program, and she was sitting in an office instead of cleaning it. A knock at the door made them both look up. Marcus stood there, casual in his Friday office attire. No tie, sleeves rolled up, showing the subtle strength of his forearms. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, though his smile suggested he wasn't sorry at all. "Just wanted to make sure everything's going smoothly." Janet beamed. "Mr. Owen, yes, we were just getting started. Yasmin's preliminary scores are excellent." "I'm not surprised," he said, his eyes meeting Yasmin's with warmth that had nothing to do with professional assessment. Her phone buzzed again. Noah this time. "Mom, I got an A+ on my science project. Mr. Marcus's idea about solar panels worked." The past 2 weeks had been full of such moments, Marcus helping Noah with homework over FaceTime, sending Yara encouraging texts about her therapy, appearing with coffee just when Yasmin needed it most. Small gestures that meant everything. "We should grab lunch," he said casually, "to discuss your training schedule." Janet's knowing smile suggested she saw right through the professional pretense, but her warm expression held no judgment, only understanding. "I have plans," Yasmin said reluctantly. "Yara's therapy appointment, then Noah's parent-teacher conference." "No, I know," Marcus smiled. "That's why I had lunch delivered to Dr. Rivera's office. We can all eat together after Yara's session." Before Yasmin could respond, another IT employee burst in. "Server crisis on 32, the trading system is down." Janet jumped up, but Marcus held up a hand. "Perfect training opportunity." "Yasmin?" She felt everyone's eyes on her. The CEO, the IT director, the panicked employee. 2 weeks ago, she would have shrunk under such attention. But now, "Let me take a look," she said, following them to the elevator with confident steps. The 32nd floor was chaos. Traders shouted into phones, technicians huddled around terminals, and the air crackled with panic. Yasmin approached the main server bank, her mind already racing through possibilities. "The system's rejecting all connections," a tech explained. "We've tried—" "Wait," Yasmin interrupted, spotting something familiar in the code scrolling across the screen. "I've seen this before in my Tech Future course." Her fingers flew across the keyboard, drawing on knowledge she'd thought long forgotten. The room fell silent, except for the click of keys and her soft muttering. "There," she said finally. "Try it now." Screens flickered, then came alive. The trading system rebooted, and a cheer went up across the floor. Janet stared at her in amazement. "How did you—" "Sometimes the simplest solutions get overlooked," Yasmin explained. "Basic programming often works better than complicated fixes." She felt Marcus's presence behind her, solid and supportive. "Like life," he said softly, for her ears only. Her phone chimed, a reminder for Yara's appointment. The contrast struck her. Minutes ago solving a $1 million trading crisis, now rushing to make sure her sister didn't miss therapy. "Go," Marcus said, reading her expression. "Janet can handle the paperwork. Family comes first." That word, family, didn't feel strange anymore when he said it. In the elevator, Yasmin caught her reflection in the polished doors. The woman staring back wasn't just a cleaning lady or a single mother or even an IT trainee. She was all of those things and more. Her phone buzzed one last time. A text from Marcus. "Proud of you, all of you. Don't forget Noah's favorite hot chocolate for after his conference." She smiled, remembering their first real conversation about his parents' restaurant, about understanding the value of hard work and the importance of dreams. Now here she was, living a dream she'd never dared to have. The elevator opened on the lobby, and Yasmin stepped out with her head high. Employees who once barely noticed her now nodded in greeting. The security guard, James today, gave her a respectful Ms. Foster as she passed. Outside, Boston's spring sunshine painted everything in shades of possibility. Her new life stretched before her like an open road, not easier perhaps, but filled with support and hope, and her heart skipped as she spotted Marcus waiting by his Tesla, 2 cups of premium hot chocolate in hand. "Thought you might want company," he said simply. And standing there between her past and her future, Yasmin realized something profound. Sometimes the biggest changes don't come from grand gestures or dramatic moments, but from simple choices made with courage and love. Because transformation isn't always about leaving everything behind. Sometimes it's about bringing the best parts of your past into a future you never thought possible. And sometimes the strongest foundations are built not on corporate success or social status, but on hot chocolate promises and the quiet understanding that you don't have to face any challenge alone. The headline on the business news website glared from Yasmin's computer screen: Griffin Tower CEO Marcus Owen's personal life under scrutiny. Sources question recent HR decisions. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the article, each word hitting like a physical blow. Anonymous sources questioning her rapid promotion, suggesting impropriety, drawing parallels to other corporate scandals. Worse were the comments section, where speculation about their relationship turned ugly and personal. Her phone lit up with a text from Marcus: "Don't read the news, it's nothing, we'll handle it." But it wasn't nothing. The careful balance they'd built over the past month, her new IT career, Yara's therapy progress, Noah's flourishing in the gifted program, and their quietly growing relationship, suddenly felt fragile as glass. A knock at her office door made her jump. Janet stood there, her usually warm expression worried. "Yasmin, the board's called an emergency meeting. They're asking questions." "About me," Yasmin said quietly. It wasn't a question. Her computer chimed with an urgent email. Noah's gifted program coordinator, concerning comments from other parents regarding scholarship funding sources. Meeting requested. The walls seemed to close in. Everything they'd built was being questioned, tainted by implications and whispers. Her phone buzzed again. Yara this time. "People at school talking about article. Can't handle the stairs. Please don't make me go to therapy today." Before she could respond, Marcus appeared in her doorway, his usual composed demeanor showing cracks of concern. "Yasmin, don't," she cut him off, standing. "Don't say it's nothing. Don't say we'll handle it. This is exactly what I was afraid of." The office had grown quiet, other employees pretending not to watch through glass walls as their CEO and the woman from the news article faced each other. "You've earned everything you've achieved here," Marcus said firmly. "Your technical skills are being questioned because of us," she finished. "My ability, my promotion, even Noah's school placement. They're painting it all as—" She couldn't finish. Janet cleared her throat. "The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, Mr. Owen." Marcus didn't move. "Yasmin, please, let me handle this. Like you handled the rent, the medical bills, the school fees." Her voice cracked. "They're right. Everything in my life now is because of you." "No." He stepped closer, regardless of their audience. "Everything in your life is because of your strength, your determination. I just removed some obstacles." Her phone chimed again, a series of texts from Yara. Kids sharing article in school group chat. "Someone made a meme about us, can't breathe, having panic attack in bathroom. Don't want to end up like Mom." That last message made Yasmin's blood run cold. She grabbed her bag, already moving. "I have to go. Yara needs me." "Let me drive you." "No!" The force of her response made everyone in the office jump. "Can't you see? Your help, your involvement in our lives. It's making everything worse." The hurt in his eyes felt like a physical pain, but she pushed through it. "I need to handle this myself, my family, my job, my life. I need to know I can do it alone." "You can," he said softly, "but you don't have to." Another email notification popped up on her screen, the board requesting her presence at the meeting too, to clarify certain relationships and decisions. The double meaning wasn't lost on anyone. "Ms. Foster," Janet said gently, "whatever you decide about the meeting, you've proven yourself here. The whole IT team stands behind you." But Yasmin barely heard her. Her mind was racing through possibilities. Yara having a breakdown at school, Noah facing whispers at his gifted program, her own professional reputation in tatters. "I need to get my sister," she said, her voice distant. "Please tell the board." "Tell them what?" Marcus asked when she trailed off. Yasmin looked at him, really looked, at the man who had changed everything by believing in her, who had shown her son what a father figure could be, who had helped her sister find hope again, the man she was falling in love with, even though she'd fought against it. "Tell them," she straightened her shoulders. "Tell them I'll be back tomorrow, with proof of my qualifications, documentation of my technical experience, and my resignation if they require it. But right now, my sister needs me." She turned to leave, but Marcus's voice stopped her. "And what about what you need?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Through the glass walls, she could see people hurrying past, some obviously discussing the news on their phones. Her carefully constructed new world was fracturing, and she had to choose, fight or flight. Her phone buzzed one final time, a photo from Noah, him at his desk in the gifted program, proudly holding up a perfect math test. His smile was pure joy, untouched by the adult complications swirling around him, and in that moment, Yasmin realized something profound. Running away wouldn't protect her family from pain. It would only teach them to fear love, connection, and growth, just like her mother's depression had taught them to fear vulnerability. "What I need," she said finally, turning back to Marcus, "is to know that everything we've built, my career, the kids' progress, us, isn't going to shatter because some people can't believe a former cleaning lady deserves happiness." Marcus stepped forward. "Professional distance be damned. Then let's prove them wrong. Together." The word echoed in her mind. Together. Not alone, not saved, but partnered. Equal. "I have to get Yara," she said, but her voice was stronger now. "And then we'll face whatever comes next." "We will," he promised. And somehow, even with scandal swirling and careers hanging in the balance, she believed him. Because sometimes the true test of love isn't in the grand gestures or the easy moments, but in standing firm when the world tries to tear you apart. And sometimes the strongest foundations are built not when everything is perfect, but when you choose to fight for what matters, even if it means facing every storm together. The Griffin Tower boardroom felt colder than usual, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a grey view of Boston's skyline. Yasmin sat straight-backed in her chair, her target blazer pressed to perfection, her portfolio of certifications and technical achievements laid out before her like armor. On the screen behind her, a PowerPoint presentation showed her completed projects, the trading floor crisis she'd solved, the security protocols she'd improved, the efficiency systems she'd implemented. 1 month of work that proved her worth beyond any doubt. "Ms. Foster," Board Chairman Richard Davidson adjusted his glasses, "your technical qualifications are impressive. However, Yasmin cut in smoothly, channeling every ounce of strength she'd developed as a single mother. You're concerned about the appearance of impropriety, about whether my relationship with Marcus, with Mr. Owen, compromises the company." The room fell silent. Marcus, sitting at the far end of the table as required by corporate governance, hadn't taken his eyes off her since she'd walked in. Her phone buzzed silently in her pocket. She knew without looking it would be Yara, waiting at Dr. Rivera's office with Noah. They'd insisted on being nearby during the meeting, a small family united in crisis. "The press coverage has been problematic," another board member offered. Yasmin opened her laptop, turning it to face the board. "I'd like to show you something." On the screen, lines of complex code scrolled past, the solution she'd implemented during the trading crisis. "This is proprietary code I wrote, not from any template, not from any course. Original work that saved the company millions in potential trading losses." She clicked to another screen. "And this is my original coding project from the Tech Future program, dated 7 years ago. Note the similar structure, the same innovative approach to problem solving." Janet, sitting in as IT director, leaned forward. "The similarities are remarkable. This proves, Yasmin continued, her voice steady, that my abilities existed long before I met Marcus Owen, before I cleaned these offices, before I became someone you'd consider worthy of notice." She stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. "I won't apologize for falling in love, but I also won't let you reduce my achievements to a scandal or my relationship to office gossip." Her phone buzzed again. This time a text from Noah appeared on her Apple Watch, a gift from Marcus she'd finally accepted. "Mom, we believe in you. Yaya's doing much better today." Drawing strength from those words, she continued, "My sister is winning her battle with depression. My son is thriving in a program that recognizes his genius. And I am excelling at a job I earned through skill and determination." She turned to face Marcus directly. "Yes, Mr. Owen gave me opportunities, but I seized them. I worked for them. I proved myself worthy of them." "The timing of your promotion," Davidson began, "was based on merit," Janet interrupted. "I have documentation of every decision, every evaluation. Yasmin's technical solutions have already saved us more than her annual salary several times over." Marcus started to speak, but Yasmin held up a hand. This was her battle to fight. "I understand appearances matter," she acknowledged. "So let me be clear. I'm not asking for special treatment. Test me. Evaluate me. Compare my work to any IT professional in this building, but judge me on my merits, not on who I love." The word love hung in the air, the first time she'd said it out loud. Through the glass walls, she could see office workers trying not to stare, could imagine the whispers and tweets already circulating. Her watch showed another text, this time from Yara. "Dr. Rivera says Mom would be so proud of us right now, of you, and I am too." Tears threatened, but Yasmin blinked them back. "7 years ago, I took a computer course while pregnant, dreaming of a better future. 3 months ago, I cleaned these offices at night, teaching myself coding from YouTube between shifts. Today, I stand before you as a qualified IT professional who happens to be dating your CEO." She gathered her documents with steady hands. "If that's a problem, I'll tender my resignation, but know that you'll be losing an employee based on prejudice, not performance." The boardroom remained silent for a long moment. Finally, Davidson spoke. "Ms. Foster, would you and Mr. Owen give us the room to deliberate?" In the hallway, Marcus immediately reached for her hand, but Yasmin held back. "Wait," she said softly. "Whatever they decide, I need you to know something." His dark eyes searched her face, concern evident in every line of his features. "I love you," she said simply. "Not for what you've given us, but for how you've helped me believe in myself, in possibilities, in love itself." Before he could respond, the boardroom door opened. Davidson gestured them back in, his expression unreadable. "Ms. Foster," he began formally, "the board has reviewed your qualifications, your performance records, and the circumstances of your employment." Yasmin felt Marcus tense beside her. "We find no cause for concern regarding your professional appointment," Davidson continued. "Furthermore, while we recommend discretion in workplace interactions, your personal relationship with Mr. Owen does not violate any company policies." Relief flooded through her, but Davidson wasn't finished. "However," he added, "we would like to suggest one modification to your position." Yasmin's heart stuttered. "Sir, we'd like you to head up a new initiative, training and recruitment from non-traditional backgrounds, technical education for employees looking to advance, starting with the cleaning staff." Tears spilled then, but Yasmin didn't try to hide them. I would be honored." Her watch lit up with rapid-fire texts from Yara and Noah, who'd obviously been monitoring the situation through Janet's updates. "Yes, Mom." "You did it! Can we have celebration hot chocolate?" And suddenly, standing in that boardroom with her career intact and her dignity preserved, Yasmin realized something profound. Sometimes the biggest victories aren't just about proving others wrong, but about proving yourself right. Marcus's hand found hers, and this time she held on tight. Because sometimes love isn't about being saved or being the savior. It's about standing together, fighting together, and believing together. And sometimes the most powerful answer to doubt and prejudice isn't anger or retreat, but simply standing firmly in your truth, holding tight to those who believe in you, and showing the world that love and success aren't mutually exclusive gifts. 6 months later, the 47th floor of Griffin Tower looked different in the evening light. Or maybe it was Yasmin who was different, standing in her office, the same corner office where she'd once cleaned floors and fixed a CEO's computer on a fateful night. Her reflection in the window showed a woman transformed, confidence in her posture, purpose in her eyes, and a small smile that spoke of hard-won contentment. Her business attire, no longer from Target but still chosen with careful consideration, suited her as naturally as her old cleaning uniform once had. "Ms. Foster," her assistant poked her head in. "Your 6 o'clock is here, the new training program candidates." Yasmin turned from the window, gathering the materials she'd prepared. "Send them in, please." 5 people filed in, all wearing elite cleaning services uniforms. She recognized that mixture of hope and uncertainty in their eyes. She'd worn it herself not so long ago. "Welcome to the Tech Future Corporate Initiative," she began warmly. "I'm Yasmin Foster, and 6 months ago I was standing exactly where you are now." Her phone lit up with a text from Yara. "Killed my college interview. Dr. Rivera's breathing techniques really helped. Love you." Pride bloomed in her chest. Her sister, now thriving in therapy and managing her depression, had applied to Boston University's computer science program. The same girl who'd once hidden in school bathrooms was now planning her future with confidence. "Mom!" Noah's voice carried through the office as he burst in, still in his advanced mathematics club uniform. "Mr. Peterson says I might be ready for high school math next year." Marcus followed more sedately, carrying Noah's backpack and what looked suspiciously like Celebration hot chocolate cups from their favorite cafe. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, not looking sorry at all. Someone couldn't wait to share his news. The cleaning staff candidates straightened, recognizing the CEO, but Yasmin noticed they relaxed when they saw how naturally Noah ran to her, how easily Marcus set the drinks down and helped straighten the boy's crooked collar. "Actually," Yasmin smiled, "your timing is perfect. Everyone, this is my son Noah, who taught me that mathematics can be magic, and this is Marcus Owen, who believed in second chances and the power of opportunity." She turned back to the candidates. 6 months ago I was working 2 jobs, raising 2 kids alone and dreaming of something more. Today I run IT operations and this training initiative, not because someone handed it to me, but because someone gave me the chance to prove what I could do." Her hand found Marcus's naturally as she continued, "That's what this program offers. Not charity, not handouts, but opportunity. The tools to build your own future." Noah, now settled with his homework at the small desk Yasmin kept in her office for him, piped up, "Mom's really good at teaching. She helped me understand algorithms before anyone in my class." The candidates chuckled, tension breaking. One young woman, barely older than Yara, raised her hand tentatively. "Ms. Foster, I'm a single mom too. My daughter's 3. Is it really possible to—" She gestured vaguely at the office, the view, the life Yasmin had built. "What's your name?" Yasmin asked gently. "Maria." "Maria, 6 months ago I was cleaning this very office at midnight. Now I'm running it. Not because of fairy tales or luck, but because I was given a chance and I worked hard to make it count." Her phone chimed again, a reminder about dinner. They were all expected at Marcus's parents' house, where his mother had finally perfected the fusion of Korean comfort food and American hot chocolate that Noah declared almost as good as Mom's magic recipe. Looking at the eager faces before her, Yasmin felt everything come full circle. The program takes dedication. You'll work your regular jobs, attend evening classes, complete technical certifications. It won't be easy. But you won't be alone, Marcus added, surprising everyone by speaking. This company believes in untapped potential, in second chances, in the power of opportunity combined with determination. Noah looked up from his homework. "Like how Mom helped fix your computer that night." Marcus smiled, the same warm smile that had first shown Yasmin the man behind the CEO title. Exactly like that. The candidates were taking notes now, hope replacing uncertainty in their expressions. Yasmin launched into the program details, explaining schedules, requirements, and opportunities, but part of her mind was already at dinner, where Yara would share her interview stories, Noah would explain his latest mathematical discovery, and Marcus's parents would argue lovingly about whose cultural comfort food better cured a hard day. Later that night, after the candidates left with applications in hand and hope in their hearts, after Noah had fallen asleep on Marcus's office couch surrounded by math worksheets, Yasmin stood again at the window. Marcus joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Proud of you," he murmured. "Proud of us," she corrected. "All of us." Her phone showed a final text from Yara. "Got the grades for early admission. Can we celebrate this weekend? Love you guys." Yasmin leaned back against Marcus, watching their reflection in the window. Behind them, Noah slept peacefully, his homework showing complex equations that would have scared her 6 months ago, but now filled her with understanding and pride. "You know," Marcus said softly, "that night when my computer crashed, I was working on a proposal about corporate responsibility and community investment. I never finished it. Why not? Because something better came along. Someone who showed me that real change doesn't come from proposals and programs. It comes from believing in people, from giving them not just opportunities, but respect." Yasmin turned in his arms. And love, he agreed, kissing her softly. Always love. Noah stirred on the couch, mumbling something about algorithms in his sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more candidates to train, more barriers to break, more battles to fight. But tonight, in this office where everything began, Yasmin Foster stood complete. Because sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about dramatic rescues or fairy tale endings, but about two people who help each other become their best selves. And sometimes the most powerful magic isn't found in grand gestures or perfect moments, but in the quiet triumph of proving that with love, support, and determination, any destiny can be crossed, any future can be rewritten, and any heart can find its home. 2 years later, the autumn breeze carried the scent of fallen leaves across Boston Common as Yasmin adjusted Noah's tie, a miniature version of Marcus's. At 9 years old, her son had insisted on matching his stepfather for this special occasion, right down to the carefully folded pocket square. "Mum, you're doing it again," Noah complained good-naturedly as she fussed with his collar. "Let her fuss," Marcus laughed, looking handsome in his charcoal suit. "It's a big day." And it was. The banner across Griffin Tower's entrance read, Tech Future Corporate Initiative, 2nd Anniversary Celebration and Graduation Ceremony. Below it, crowds gathered, employees, families, and most importantly, the newest graduating class of the program Yasmin had built from her own experience. Her phone buzzed with an incoming FaceTime call from Yara, now a sophomore at Boston University. Her sister's face appeared, bright with excitement despite the early hour in her dorm room. "I'm on my way," Yara exclaimed. "Just finished my morning classes." "Save me a seat next to Maria and her daughter," Yasmin smiled, remembering the young single mother from that first class of candidates. Maria now ran the IT help desk, her daughter thriving in the same gifted program that had changed Noah's life. "Don't forget Mum's necklace," Yara added softly. "It's perfect for today." Yasmin touched the delicate chain around her neck, their mother's favorite piece of jewelry, now a symbol of how far they'd come from those dark days of depression and loss. Dr. Rivera had helped Yara frame it perfectly during one of their final therapy sessions. Mum's story didn't end with goodbye. It continued through the strength she gave us. The ceremony space filled quickly. 50 graduates in business attire, former cleaning staff, security guards, maintenance workers, all now certified IT professionals. Their families beamed with pride, many holding signs and flowers. In the front row, Marcus's parents sat with Noah, his mother dabbing her eyes already. Beside them, Janet from IT had come out of retirement specially for this day, wearing the Mentor of the Year pin Yasmin's students had given her. "Ready?" Marcus squeezed her hand as she prepared to take the stage. Yasmin looked out at the crowd. 2 years ago, she'd stood in this same building in a cleaning uniform, dreaming of something more. Now, she stepped to the podium, her confidence as natural as breathing. "Welcome, everyone. 2 years ago, a computer crashed and a life changed." The ceremony flowed perfectly. Graduates received their certificates, shared their stories, cried happy tears. Maria's little girl presented Yasmin with a hand-drawn card showing stick figures at computers, all wearing superhero capes. When the formal proceedings ended, families mingled over catered refreshments, including, of course, hot chocolate with the magic recipe Yasmin had shared with the hotel's chef. "Mrs. Owen?" One of the graduates approached hesitantly. "Still Ms. Foster professionally," Yasmin corrected gently, though her wedding ring caught the light as she spoke. "But please, call me Yasmin. Thank you, not just for the program, but for showing us it's possible. All of it." Yara arrived then, wrapping Yasmin in a fierce hug before pulling out her phone to show off her latest coding project. Noah immediately launched into an explanation of how her algorithm could be improved, making everyone laugh. Marcus watched his family with quiet joy, remembering that desperate night with a crashed computer and an approaching deadline. "Worth every crisis," he murmured. "What was that?" Yasmin asked. "Just thinking how some computer problems turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to you." Later that evening, they gathered at their home, a comfortable townhouse halfway between Griffin Tower and Noah's school. Not too luxurious, but full of warmth and life. Photos lined the walls, Yara's high school graduation, Noah's math competition victories, the intimate wedding ceremony, where they'd all shared cups of hot chocolate instead of champagne. Yasmin stood in the kitchen, watching through the window, as Marcus helped Noah set up his new telescope in the backyard. Yara sat on the deck working on her coding assignment, occasionally calling out questions that Noah surprisingly could answer. Her phone showed a text from Maria. "My daughter got into the gifted program. Thank you for blazing the trail." Looking at her blended, beautiful family, Yasmin thought about destiny and choices, about cleaning floors and writing code, about love that transforms but never diminishes who you are. She touched her mother's necklace, then her wedding ring, then the newest addition, a small pendant Marcus had given her at the ceremony, engraved with a simple line of code that meant, "Create new beginning." The doorbell rang, their regular Sunday dinner guests arriving. Marcus's parents came bearing Korean dishes, while Janet followed with her famous apple pie. The house filled with laughter, multiple languages, and the smell of fusion comfort food. As they gathered around the table, Noah proudly showing off his latest mathematical proof, Yara discussing her summer internship plans, and Marcus's mother teaching Yasmin another secret recipe, Yasmin felt the completeness of her journey. Because sometimes the most beautiful endings aren't endings at all, but beginnings written in infinite loops of love and possibility. And sometimes the greatest achievement isn't in reaching a destination, but in creating a path for others to follow, lighting the way with hope, determination, and maybe just a touch of hot chocolate magic. In the end, every crossed destiny is just the start of a new algorithm, calculating infinite possibilities for those brave enough to believe in second chances, strong enough to fight for their dreams, and wise enough to know that love, pure, supportive, respectful love, is the most powerful code of all. Final author's note. Dear readers, this story celebrates not just romance, but the power of believing in yourself and others. It's about family, both born and chosen, and the courage to accept love in all its forms. What dreams are you holding back from? What chances are you afraid to take? Remember Yasmin's journey, and know that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with a simple choice to believe in possibilities. Your story matters.